In our final semester of high school, the billionaire's daughter confessed to her childhood sweetheart. He turned her down and publicly declared his love for me, the girl who'd always adored him. Believing his feelings were genuine, I followed him through every reckless escapade until my grades plummeted, dethroning me from academic royalty. At graduation, he went official with the billionaire's daughter, who'd secured early admission to an elite university. I overheard him sweet-talking her while badmouthing me. I read her diary. She's been obsessed with me for over a decade, just another pathetic simp. Who'd ever want someone like that? The only reason I'm with her is to make her give up that guaranteed admission spot for you. I promised your parents I wouldn't ruin your academic future. How else would they let you marry me, after dying in a daze from that car accident? I woke up reliving the day my boyfriend first confessed his feelings. He held up the flowers with tender affection, declaring his love for me. I slapped him across the face. 1. Shinzinan confessed his feelings to me, right after noon dismissal. When the schoolyard was packed with students, he suddenly came charging out. He scooped rose petals from his pocket, scattered them on the ground, then knelt on one knee holding a bouquet of baby's breath to confess. Xingxing, I love you. Will you be my girlfriend? There he knelt amidst crimson petals, the bouquet held high. The classmates rarely got to witness such drama during their stressful high school days. One by one, they all started egging us on. His loving gaze only sent chills down my spine. Had I not been reborn a month ago, I might have actually fallen for his tender facade. We were both orphans who grew up in the same institution. We studied together, worked odd jobs to make ends meet, clinging to each other for warmth through hard times. In my past life, I'd already fallen for him. I eagerly accepted his confession, declaring with conviction under our teacher's disapproving gaze that we'd stay together forever. After that, he started skipping class with me. He'd pass me secret notes during lessons. He even said he'd make me experience a woman's pleasure before graduation. My grades kept plummeting, yet whenever I tried to improve, he'd coincidentally pull me back down harder. But back then, I believed love could sustain me, completely ignoring my teacher's warnings. I even started fantasizing about marrying him right after graduation. Looking back now, I was hopelessly stupid back then. After graduation, Shinzinan did go public with his relationship, just not with me. It was Gu Jiaojiao, the heiress of Liuqing's richest family who'd once confessed to him. The moment I saw their social media post, I rushed to confront him, only to overhear their conversation at the door. The two were discussing engagement plans. When mentioning me, Shinzinan's tone dripped with undisguised contempt. That Luoxing, just my pathetic lapdog. I only dated her to keep you focused on studies, to show you what happens to puppy love fools. He chuckled and pulled Gu Jiaojiao into an embrace. Who'd actually like that clingy type? Just some casual fun, only she'd take it seriously. But her downfall did knock some sense into you, got you into that elite school. At least she was good for something. I promised your parents I wouldn't disrupt your studies. How else would they agree to let me marry their precious daughter? Pouting playfully, Gu Jiaojiao asked. You two were childhood sweethearts, and after dating for half a year, she must still hold some place in your heart, right? He smirked mockingly. Never. I don't know how I walked away. At that moment, I didn't even have the courage to push open the door and slap him. When I came to my senses, I'd already been run over by a truck. My body racked with excruciating pain. The only thought in my mind was how I'd failed to slap that bastard to death back then. So this time, as I watched Shinzinan kneeling before me, gripping my hand with his greasy fingers and preparing to kiss my knuckles, my hand jerked instinctively. That long overdue slap finally landed across his face, transcending time and space. Stunned by the blow, he forced a strained smile. Xingxing, are you, perhaps too nervous? As he spoke, he shoved the bouquet into my arms and moved in for a hug. I kicked him in the groin and immediately followed up with a backhanded slap. Looking down at him curled on the ground, my expression turned icy. I don't like you and won't accept you. Stay away from me from now on. I've been keeping my distance from you all month. Why can't you take the hint? I looked around with disdain and said, everyone, just leave. Shinzinan, who had been brimming with confidence about his confession, froze on the spot. Even the surrounding classmates were stunned. After all, everyone knew I used to have a crush on Shinzinan, always following him around like a puppy. Though I'd been keeping my distance from them this past month, going solo all the time, they just assumed we'd had a lover's quarrel. Even if it's a rejection, you didn't have to be so brutally harsh. Shinzinan scrambled up from the ground, his face dark as thunder. He glared at me viciously. Luoxing, have I spoiled you too much? Do you really think you can manipulate me? Let me make this clear. I confess to you out of courtesy because you're a girl. Turn me down now. and there won't be a next time. Who else would want an orphan like you anyway? His face was brimming with arrogance as he spoke, even flashing a hint of smugness while showing off to me. I already know you like me. Just apologize now, and I'll pretend nothing ever happened. Then he stood there with unwavering confidence, waiting for my apology. After all, in all those years before this, we'd never had such a serious argument, even when he forcibly brought Gu Jiajiao, the transfer student in senior year, into our social circle. I just silently sulked for a day. The next day, I was the first to extend an olive branch. I scoffed coldly. Did you catch some delusional disease? When did you become this narcissistic? We're both orphans, but we're nothing alike. You've got no looks. No grades. Do you really think the top student would fall for a hopeless loser like you? A mocking glint flashed in my sharp eyes. You think you're worthy. The taunt instantly pierced Shinzinen's fragile ego. Nothing infuriated him more than people mocking his flaws. But he's got way too many flaws. This guy's like a walking landmine. You never know what random comment might set him off. All these years I've been tiptoeing around his fragile ego. But not anymore. He looked utterly humiliated. His whole body trembling with rage. His finger trembled as he pointed at me. How dare you humiliate me like this? A dark glint flashed in his eyes, playing hard to get. If your diary hadn't spelled out your feelings for me, why would I ever confess to someone as desperate as you? He let out a cold laugh, adopting a patronizing tone. Don't think I don't know what's written in that pink notebook buried deep in your desk. I've seen it all along. You've had a crush on me since we were kids, haven't you? Following me around like some lovesick puppy every day, even spending your hard-earned money on me. You're seriously pathetic. Watching his confession crash and burn, he started hurling every vile insult imaginable at me, desperately trying to salvage what little remained of his shattered pride. But did I really look like I'd give him that satisfaction? My eyes welled up as I saw the approaching teacher, biting my lip hard, my gaze burned with defiance. What's going on here? Why aren't you all at lunch? The teacher's angry shout came from behind, sending timid classmates scattering like startled birds. A few bold onlookers grinned and told the teacher they weren't hungry. Meanwhile, I barged straight into the classroom and grabbed a pink-covered notebook. By the time I stepped out, my classmates had already given the teacher a quick rundown of what happened. I've always been the well-behaved type at school, never stepped out of line, so the teacher decided to hear my side of the story first. My hands trembled as I raised the notebook high, glaring at Shinzinen across from me with burning resentment. This is the diary you mentioned. The one you claimed was filled with my secret crush on you. Shinzinen smirked confidently. That's the one. There's even a page covered with my name. Isn't this proof enough that you have a crush on me? As the words left his mouth, he looked at the teacher with burning intensity. Teacher, I'm not lying. She totally has feelings for me. It's even affecting my studies now. I only confessed to her today because I had no choice. What if she keeps harassing me otherwise? He spoke with such sincerity that even the teacher was almost convinced. Luo Xing, what on earth is going on? With trembling hands, I opened the notebook as everyone around watched curiously. Shinzinen waited eagerly for the crowd's uproar and the look of devastation on my face, but there was nothing, because everyone around was already looking back with disdain. What nonsense, that's completely untrue. A guy in our class shot Shinzinen a disgusted look. Are you actually delusional? Thinking everyone likes you? The teacher sighed with a hint of disgust in her expression. Shin, confidence is good, but your priority now should be studying. Stop causing trouble and distracting Luoxing from her work. Do you call this a love diary? It's clearly an error correction notebook. Shinzinen's face froze as he rushed forward and snatched the notebook from my hands. His face turned deathly pale the moment he saw the densely packed wrong answers written on the page. This can't be. Absolutely impossible. These were supposed to be her secret diary entries about having a crush on me. He glared at me with a face contorted by overwhelming emotion, demanding, "Where's the diary? Did you hide it from me?" Before I could react, teachers and classmates around us had already pulled us apart. I excel academically, have good looks, and a pleasant personality, by any measure. I'm far more popular than that hot-tempered thunder god. The teachers shielded me behind them, glaring sharply at Shinzinen. Mr. Shin, this ends here. If I catch you harassing Luoxing again, I'll recommend your expulsion to the school. The scholarships and study opportunities the school fought so hard to secure for you weren't meant for harassing good students. The teacher's blunt words turned Shinzinen's face ashen. With a flush of humiliated anger creeping up his neck, he clenched his fists so tightly they shook, glaring at me with murderous intensity like he wanted to skin me alive. But under the teacher's withering gaze, he reluctantly lowered his head. I'm sorry, teacher, I was wrong today. I apologized to Luoxing. this won't happen again. I watched his retreating figure with a cold smirk. Some people always think their plans are foolproof. Unfortunately for them, I've been reborn, for a whole month already. A month is more than enough time to accomplish plenty. Like burning that diary from my past life that dragged me into the abyss, replacing it with the mistake notebook I'd prepared. 2. The incident spread like wildfire through the grapevine. Thanks to those gossip mongers who witnessed it, everyone started calling Shinzenon Narcissus bro. They said he was a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. How dare someone like him fantasize about a top student like me having a crush on him for years. He was so humiliated that he skipped class for days. When he finally showed up at school again, he was already dating Gu Jiajiao. How did I find out about this? Because on Shinzenon's first day back, both of them got called into the teacher's office. I curiously asked my deskmate what had happened. The girl grabbed my hand excitedly and started gossiping. Xing, I had no one to spill the tea with when you were at the competition this morning. Guess what? They're officially a couple now. And get this, Jiao confessed first. The whole scene was so cringy. I swear it was even cheesier than when Mr. Narcissist professed his love to you. Mr. Narcissist got so emotional he straight up pulled Jiao into a dramatic kiss right then and there. The teacher literally fainted from rage and is still on oxygen at the hospital. The department chair had to drag those two lovebirds to the office. She clicked her tongue twice, saying, "Damn, that's impressive. It's been ages since I've seen such textbook-grade insanity." What else can I say? Classic Narcissus over here. Color me impressed. I stood there dumbfounded. In my past life, Shinzenon had always maintained this image of icy composure around me. The only time he ever made a move was when he tried to initiate me into adulthood right before our college entrance exams. He was usually ice-cold toward me, so that single moment of tenderness completely swept me off my feet. At this thought, I secretly slapped myself across the face, knocking all that lovesick nonsense from my past life out of my head. As school was about to end, the teacher finally released them from the office, with curious classmates craning their necks to look. To everyone's surprise, the moment they stepped out, they immediately held hands. They even waved at classmates while passing by, acting like they were walking the red carpet. Everyone nodded with polite smiles, then immediately turned to whisper, "Jesus? These two idiots actually think they're hot shit. This is hilarious. Can't wait to see how this plays out. I hereby declare them our campus clowns." They remained blissfully unaware of how ridiculous they looked. As Shinzenon passed by me, he shot me a smug glance while clutching Gu Jiajiao tightly in his arms. Having regrets now, with a dramatic hair flip reminiscent of those tacky emo influencers. He sneered, "Had you said yes back then, you'd be the one enjoying all my love right now." I recoiled several steps, desperate to avoid their toxic aura. "Hard pass. May you two live happily ever after, preferably with 8 babies in one go." Gu Jiajiao simpered against Shin's chest, throwing me a triumphant look. "Save your sarcasm. You're just jealous I won brother Shin's heart. Too late for regrets now." As if to make a statement, she grabbed Shinzenon's hand and planted a wet, smacking kiss on it. When they pulled apart, strands of saliva still connected them. The crowd instantly erupted in shrieks. "Holy shit, my eyes, goddamn my fucking eyes, my eyes, my eyes." But they mistook it for the whimpers of a lovelorn singleton getting third-wheeled. Watching me cringe, they strutted away triumphantly. Truth is, I was just dying of second-hand embarrassment. Honestly, if they stay here any longer, I won't need to buy a house. I'll have dug myself a basement out of sheer embarrassment. My toes just excavated an entire Disney castle from cringe. My classmates gave me these loaded looks. "Luosheng, you're actually childhood friends with someone like that?" I shook my head decisively. "Never met him. We just happened to grow up in the same orphanage." My deskmate looked at me hesitantly. "But you said earlier." I glared at them. "Don't ask. Keep asking and he'll become your childhood sweetheart." My deskmate immediately shut up. During the long break, he gave Gu Jiajiao a bouquet of flowers. Passing classmates shot them amused glances. Gu Jiajiao mistook them for looks of envy. With her head held high like a proud swan, she accepted the bouquet. The couple embraced sweetly before everyone. The furious teacher scowled in disgust as they walked past the couple. It was clear no teacher cared to discipline them anymore. Yet the pair seemed to take this as the teachers endorsing their romance. They began flaunting their affection even more openly. Just after class, I was about to head to the school library with my books for some quiet study time. When I turned around, I saw 2 people walking toward me in an awkward embrace. Shinzenon had his arm around Gu Jiajiao's waist, yet she insisted on linking arms with him. I couldn't help but burst out laughing at the sight. Seeing me smile, Shinzenon lifted his noble head and strode to my side. With a disdainful glance at the books in my arms, he sneered, "Told you you're just a bookworm. What's the point of being booksmart? You'll still end up marrying an outstanding man like me anyway." He gave a cold laugh. "This world still belongs to men. Women should just focus on their natural duty of bearing children. Stop fantasizing about women holding up half the sky. That's utterly delusional." I shot him a derisive glance while feigning a wounded expression before turning on my heel. Another second in his company and I'd catch his stupidity like some contagious disease. Let them keep flaunting their love and acting crazy. I've got college entrance exams to focus on. Can't afford to have my IQ dragged down by him. The two behind me burst into laughter, clearly convinced I still had lingering feelings for Shinzinen. What puzzles me is why they can't just stay obsessed with each other. Must they really drag me into their little game? Shinzinen strode over, took one look at my distressed expression, and smirked triumphantly. "I knew you still had feelings for me. Who exactly were you trying to impress with that aloof act of yours? Serves you right for playing hard to get and failing. As punishment, you'll just have to watch me and Jia Jiao live happily ever after." He planted a loud, smacking kiss on Gu Jiajia's cheek. The girl covered her blushing face with her hands. Then shot me a defiant look. "Brother Shin belongs to me now. Back off, I'm warning you. I can give him things you'll never be able to. After all, I'm the heir to my family's corporation." I stubbornly refused to glance their way, terrified that if I saw their expressions, I wouldn't be able to hold back my laughter for another second. She covered her face and hurried away. In the following days, those two became even more insufferably smug. Between dealing with them and preparing for college entrance exams, I was completely fed up. My frustration must have shown on my face, but they completely misread the situation. That day, the inseparable pair suddenly went their separate ways. Shinzinen suddenly came to find me this morning and mysteriously pulled me aside. Our classmates watched curiously, crowding by the doorway trying to eavesdrop on our conversation. My deskmate even secretly slipped a voice recorder into my pocket. She winked at me and whispered, "I bought this recorder just to catch your gossip. Cost me a pretty penny too." I rolled my eyes at her and followed Shinzinen out. In the hallway, Shinzinen put on an affectionate act and tried to hold my hand. Seeing my frown, he awkwardly withdrew his hand. "I'll give you one chance. Just apologize to me publicly and admit you like me. The reason you rejected my confession was just because you're shy. Do this. And I'll give you another chance. I'll cut ties with Gu Jiajiao." I let out a stunned, "Huh." Waves of commotion kept rolling in from the classroom behind us. I rubbed my throbbing temples. "Aren't you worried about pissing off Gu Jiajiao? Her family's loaded, and she's set to take over their company after graduation." Sure enough, hesitation flickered across Shinzinen's face. Her eyes welled up with emotion as she looked at me. "I knew you still loved me. You're being so considerate of me. Don't worry, I'll handle this matter properly." Gritting his teeth with a hint of guilt, he said, "Even if I can't give you an official status, just say you love me and apologize, and I'll have no problem making you my mistress. I'll treat you both equally, maybe even favor you more since I can't give you a proper public standing." Gagging noises erupted from classmates behind us. "If this keeps going, I'll become the punchline at every single class reunion from now on." I quickly cut him off. "Let's just drop it. You and your precious Gu Jiajiao can stay together forever." When I hurried back to class, sure enough, my classmates greeted me with sarcastic remarks. Mimicking that pink creature's mannerisms, they spread their hands and drawled, "If it isn't our narcissist's little sweetheart, my love for you both is absolutely equal." Their teasing made me flush crimson. And I let out a deep sigh. "Stop it already. I'm completely fed up with him." The classmates around us nodded in emphatic agreement. A few guys even thumped their chests and promised, "Don't worry, if he bothers you again, we'll chase him off for you." Just when I thought their provocation would end here, Gu Jiajia showed up at my doorstep that afternoon. My deskmate sighed and resignedly slipped the same recorder into my pocket. Giving me another knowing wink, I walked out in despair, staring at Gu Jiajiao with dead fish eyes. Unfazed, she held her head high and looked down on me with the same condescending gaze as before. I cut her off mid-sentence, pulled out the voice recorder from my pocket, and played it for her. Her expression didn't change one bit after listening. If anything, she looked even more smug. Blushing furiously, she gave me a once-over with a critical eye. "I can't imagine what Brother Shin sees in someone as flat-chested and shapeless as you. Guess what? We've already given each other our firsts. You've missed your chance," she declared with pride. "I'm his first and only woman, his salvation in this lifetime. He said even if he's with you, he'll still consider my feelings. You'll only ever be his mistress. When the time comes, you'll just be a servant under me. Know your place." I stared at her in stunned silence. who knew this recording would be completely useless against her. The Qing dynasty's long gone, why hasn't this bastard turned to dust yet? She mistook it for striking a chord with me, she gloated at me, who told you not to cherish him when you had the chance? Now that I've taken him away, you must be heartbroken, aren't you? She was dying to see regret in my eyes, because only my remorse could validate everything she'd done, but to her dismay, all she could detect in my eyes was sheer awkwardness. I'm dying of cringe here. Can these idiots just get the hell away from me? God damn it, I'm calling the cops to haul their asses to jail. A shiver ran down my spine as I frantically shook off the creeping disgust. I waved my hands at her repeatedly, spare my brother, I just want to focus on studying now. Please let me be. I slunk back to class like a beaten dog. When I told my classmates about what happened, their usual teasing vanished, replaced by uneasy glances at the smug girl walking away outside. A look of indescribable sorrow crossed his face. After a long silence, my desk mate let out a wistful sigh. This kid comes from a well-off family, doesn't he? Yet he seems starved for affection. I nodded in wholehearted agreement. After that confrontation, they still couldn't resist flaunting their relationship around me, either bragging about what they did today or planning their next date. Basically, they wasted their time doing nothing productive all day long. Meanwhile, I was studying like my life depended on it, because I knew that for someone like me, the college entrance exam was my only ticket to success. Only fools like Shinzinen would pin their hopes on marriage to change their fate. I may not be exceptionally intelligent, but I possess an unyielding and indomitable spirit. Time trickled away minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, my high school years came to an end. Sitting in the internet cafe with trembling hands, I checked my college entrance exam results. The 703 score staring back at me instantly made my eyes well up. I immediately texted the good news to my homeroom teacher and close classmates. They all sincerely congratulated me. On graduation day, we created a class group chat, and for some inexplicable reason, my deskmate dragged Shinzinen into it. She justified it by saying, we're all classmates after all. Truth be told, I knew she just wanted the juiciest gossip firsthand. Shinzinen brought Gu Jiaojiao along with him. That day, they posted over 70 photos together, even morning after shots. We cheered congratulations publicly, while secretly forming chat groups to vent. One by one, people started sharing their exam results in the group chats. In the end, everyone wrapped up their high school journey with satisfying results, except for two. Some busybodies in the group started tagging Gu Jiaojiao and Shinzinen. After all, Gu Jiaojiao may not be a top student, but she was consistently in the top 100 of her grade. With my tutoring, Shinzinen even had the potential to break into the top 20, although they missed the final mock exams due to various reasons. Both teachers and classmates still had high expectations for them. Skipping a mock exam is one thing, but how could you possibly bail on the actual college entrance exam? The two remained completely silent. The silence was deafening. Someone then posted a photo in the group chat, a pale-faced Gu Jiaojiao clutching her stomach, and Shinzinen with bruises covering his face. A circle of parents had gathered around. The image instantly flooded the group chat. A torrent of question marks poured out. In the end, a few students from business families quietly asked their parents what was really going on. Turns out these two really skipped the college entrance exams. They left school early because Gu Jiaojiao got pregnant. They originally planned to secretly abort the baby, but before they could act, Gu Jiaojiao's father showed up at their door. The Gu family found the couple passionately making out on the hotel bed. They were caught with their pants down. Literally, both ended up hospitalized. Gu Jiaojiao suffered a miscarriage from the shock, while Shinzinen was beaten severely on the spot, still fighting for life in ICU with a concussion. Watching the group chat discussion made my eyebrow twitch uncontrollably. Since my rebirth, too many things have changed. Just then, someone suggested we should at least go see them. After all, we were classmates. Upon closer look, the person raising objections turned out to be my high school deskmate. She sent me a Doge meme, and everything suddenly clicked. I replied with an eye roll emoji. She chuckled and sent a voice message. Don't tell me you're not curious to check it out. Her bewitching words made my heart skip a beat. How could that be? All I want right now is to see Shinzinen's miserable state. We agreed to visit him at the hospital together, but to our surprise, Shinzinen woke up the moment we entered the ward. The moment he saw me, an unprecedented light flashed in his eyes. Xing, is that really you? God, I've missed you so much. He staggered, trying to get out of bed, but excruciating pain stopped him cold. He stared at his own body in shock, then looked around at the people nearby with dazed confusion. My eyebrows shot up. Is this guy also reborn or something? Suppressing my suspicions, I shot him a disgusted look. What do you want? Your wife still hospitalized after her miscarriage? He stared at me in shock. What wife? You're the only one I love. The surrounding classmates started making disgusted tisk-tisk noises. That's exactly what I was thinking, muttering damn it. I turned to leave. Little did I know worse was yet to come. After returning from the hospital that day, Shinzinen clung to me like some persistent pest I couldn't shake off. He showed up at my part-time workplace too. He was there on my commute to and from work, driven to distraction by his pestering. I finally confronted him. What exactly do you want? To my shock, he suddenly dropped to his knees before me, crawling closer. He looked up at me with hopeful eyes. I've figured out what happened in this lifetime. I know you must be reborn too. Let's start over, please. I truly love you. In my past life, I was just bewitched by Gu Jiaojiao. The only one I've ever truly loved is you. He looked at me intensely as he spoke. You said you liked me best. Remember, at the orphanage, when we were kids, I'd always share my secretly hoarded snacks with you. I smirked cynically. Then what was all that with Gu Jiaojiao earlier? His eyes lit up with hope. That's because I love you so much. I can't stand you being cold to me. Why else would I keep using her to provoke you? Besides, the only reason you've done so well in exams your whole life is because I dragged his grades down. Isn't that right? He spoke with self-righteous conviction, even with a hint of expecting praise. I frowned, feeling my disgust for him grow even stronger. What do you mean? I only got this high score because of him. His face darkened under my sarcastic gaze. After all, I'd never treated him this way in our past life. But I wasn't about to let him off the hook, just let out a mocking laugh. I owe my high score to you, no doubt. But honestly, I could have done even better if you and Gu Jiaojiao hadn't been constantly getting in my face, so do me a favor, leave me alone. I let out a cold laugh and turned on my heel. I told the security guard at the gate, this guy keeps harassing me. If he shows up again, please call the police for me. He lunged at me with a snarl. You can't do this to me. You're supposed to love me. How dare you not love me? You died for love of me in your past life. How could you be so heartless in this one? But his words barely stirred a ripple in my heart. The security guards dutifully blocked him at the entrance, taking him for a lunatic. They drove him away with undisguised disgust. I heard he still came to harass me a few more times after that, but under the security guard's threat to call the police, he eventually gave up. The next time I saw him was 6 years later. By then I had graduated from college and started my own business. I was chatting and laughing with people around me at a dinner party. Just then, a commotion broke out nearby. Turning my head, I saw 2 people entering the room. My business partner nudged my shoulder and whispered in my ear, do you know who they are? They're practically legendary. The Gu family's daughter used to be a decent student, but ever since getting involved with that Shen guy, she's been completely bewitched, head over heels in love with him. Over the years, she's had multiple abortions for him. Recently, she allegedly fell down the stairs and can no longer conceive. That Shen fellow seems to have someone else in his heart. Never wanted to take responsibility. After this incident, the Gu family threatened to go to the police unless he married her, forcing him into a reluctant marriage. The business partner recounted the story with unmistakable mockery in their eyes. Their mocking gaze made me feel like a circus clown. I stared at them in astonishment as if meeting them for the first time. Seems their relationship hasn't been great during my absence these years. Our eyes met the moment I spotted them. Gu Jiaojiao's eyes lit up instantly as she strode toward me with an air of haughtiness. She sneered condescendingly. What? Did your boss bring you along to this cocktail party? Her disdainful gaze swept over me. All those years of hard work, what was the point? You're still just destined to serve people like us. Clutching Shinzinen possessively, she spoke as if flaunting her triumph. So you got into a top university, yet here you are working under someone who only finished high school, and now you have the nerve to ask me for a partnership. Her assistant beside her was already rolling her eyes, on the verge of passing out. Desperately clutching her arm to stop her from speaking further, pleading eyes turned to Shinzinen, but he was staring back at me with nothing but resentment. It was as if he blamed me for utterly destroying everything he had. Just then, the organizer of the banquet finally made an appearance. He gave a nod in my direction. I responded with a smile, and he stepped onto the stage flattered to begin his speech. His gaze firmly fixed on me. After all, the sole purpose of hosting this cocktail party today was to secure a partnership with me. Just then, Gu Jiaojiao pushed her way to the front row, gazing at him with starry-eyed admiration. She even turned back to throw a mocking jab at me. See that? That's our company's biggest client. Only people of our financial standing can land deals with someone like him. Someone like you will never get the chance to work with him in this lifetime. Shinzinan then leaned in close to me and whispered. I now hold most of the Gu family's real power. If you just admit you like me and show some humility, I can grant you special privileges. A lewd smirk curled at the corners of his mouth. How about this? Spend the night with me, and I'll give you a shot at this partnership deal. But whether you can actually land this opportunity depends entirely on you. My gaze lingered on him, realizing how blind and deaf I must have been in my past life. How could I ever have fallen for such a disgusting creature? Just then, the speech above concluded, the chairman strode briskly toward the audience. Gu Jiaojiao, who'd been waiting expectantly, assumed he was approaching the Gu family and immediately stepped forward with a beaming smile. Chairman, I'm from the Gu. Before she could finish, she watched in disbelief as the seemingly unapproachable chairman walked past her with a warm smile, straight toward me. But back then, I foolishly believed love could sustain us. Turning a deaf ear to my teacher's warnings, the two men froze in shock, staring at me with stunned expressions. The chairman's expression shifted slightly as he introduced with a smile. This is our company's primary raw material supplier I mentioned, also our second largest shareholder after me. I'd like you to meet. We'll be embarking on a 3-year collaboration moving forward. Their expressions shifted through a spectrum of emotions. Shinzinan proved more adaptable than I'd imagined, sidling up with an ingratiating smile. I know, CEO Luo, right, we were high school classmates. Gu Jiaojiao nodded frantically, her face contorting into an almost grotesquely obsequious grin. Shinzinan clearly had more to say, his formerly haughty demeanor now replaced by unctuous simpering. We grew up together since childhood, I thought. I raised my hand to cut him off. He tried to speak again, but the chairman's piercing glare instantly silenced him. I simply smiled. Isn't this banquet supposed to celebrate our successful partnership? Kindly escort these two outsiders out. I don't like them. For secure document protection, choose Little Tiger Bot, reliable service with no hidden traps. The chairman glared at the pair with dark eyes and gave a subtle nod to his assistant behind him. Several security personnel promptly arrived and removed the two individuals. Their desperate wails could still be heard from afar. President Luo, we beg you, give us one more chance. The Gu Group can't go bankrupt. Without this deal, we're finished. We're begging you. We were blind to your greatness before. Noticing the wary glances around me, I offered a gentle smile. Let's not allow outsiders to spoil the mood. Raising my glass, I proposed a toast to the chairman, to our future collaboration. The chairman visibly relaxed and raised his glass enthusiastically. To the future. The shadows of the past have faded. From this day forward, my future will be smooth sailing. Story 2. After top-charting singer Jian Pei left the demo of his last song, he died from an overdose of medication. A few days later, I received the full-length version of this song in my email. It was the song he hummed to me in high school. At the very end, there was a sentence spoken with a sobbing voice. I miss you. Time rewound 10 years. The young man sat on the steps with a guitar in his arms and looked at me. Finally, I mustered up the courage to say those words. I like you. A few days after Jiang Pei's death, a lot of things were dug up. For example, his biological father had been leeching off him for years. For example, he had severe mental illness, even to the point of experiencing auditory and visual hallucinations. And for another example, he hadn't been doing well at all these years. On the surface, he was a dazzling star in the glorious world. In fact, he had always been trapped in a bottomless abyss, struggling alone. I took several days off and stayed at home all the time. I dug out the high school graduation photo. Jian Pei stood on the far side, with a cold expression. I didn't go to school that day, and my image in the group photo was photoshopped in, right next to Jian Pei. I stared at the only photo of us and stood there in a daze. Suddenly, my phone made a sound. I picked it up. But the moment I saw the sender, I froze. It was an email from Jian Pei, but the next second I realized that it was a scheduled send. It arrived exactly at 12 noon, my hands shaking. I clicked on the file he sent. The moment the music started, I recognized it. This was the last demo he left behind, because he had hummed this song to me in high school, but the version he sent me was the full-length one. 3 minutes passed quickly, when the last guitar note faded away. I was crying so hard that I could barely breathe. But the next second, Jian Pei's voice sounded again. Wan Yuan. He called my name, and his voice was filled with a strong sobbing tone. I miss you. I looked at myself in the mirror and stood there in a daze for 2 minutes. You'll be late if you don't go to school now. My mother called from the kitchen. I glanced at the books scattered on the table. Senior 3. Then I looked up at the calendar. August 28th, the day I first met Jiang Pei. After realizing what had happened, I grabbed my school bag and rushed downstairs. By the time I ran to school, my back was soaked with sweat, but I didn't care at all. When I rushed into the classroom, the homeroom teacher was already there. Next to him was Pei. He was wearing the most ordinary white t-shirt, and the cuffs were a bit wrinkled from washing, yet his casual glance was still incredibly handsome. The moment our eyes met, the noisy classroom seemed to quiet down for a moment. But in just a few seconds, he looked away. The classmates below the podium were chatting noisily, not bothering to lower their voices at all. Damn, he's so good looking. Who do you think Oldley will make sit next to him? Probably a guy. Just a few seconds after these words were spoken, before I could even sit back in my seat, Oldley spoke. Sit there. He pointed to the empty seat next to me. I paused as I was putting down my bag, but I felt relieved inside. Phew. Things were developing as they did before. The class fell silent for a moment, and most of the classmates looked in my direction. Then they exclaimed, "He will definitely study hard now." I stood there, stunned, until Pei carried his bag, walked over to me, and sat down. He didn't look at me once during the whole process, just as aloof and unapproachable as before, but I was no longer the timid 18-year-old girl. Especially since I knew that the 28-year-old Pei still had feelings for me. So, while Oldley was speaking, I gently poked Pei's arm. He turned to look at me, his expression so cold that it seemed to freeze people. Why is he so fierce? No wonder we only had our first conversation after sitting at the same table for half a month. This time, I mustered up the courage to speak first. My name is Yuan. Oh no, I forgot that I used to be a stutterer. I froze in place, lowered my head, and didn't dare to look at Pei again. So embarrassing. He must think I'm some kind of weirdo. Just as I was so embarrassed that I felt like digging a Barbie dream mansion with my toes, I suddenly heard a low in my ear. I looked up, and Pei's face was no longer as cold as before. In fact, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Pei, after reporting his name, he turned his head back, and the slight curve at the corner of his mouth disappeared again. I felt a sense of loss, but the next second, his voice reached my ears again. I know your name is Yuan. I looked at the physics test paper in front of me, frowning deeply. Are high school physics problems this easy? Out of the corner of my eye, several girls were gathered around Pei's desk. Even though Pei didn't respond at all, they kept talking on their own. My heart sank. What's the use of being able to do physics if I can't even communicate with him normally? I was sighing silently when the physics teacher entered the classroom. He walked straight up to me. The girls around Pei's desk scattered in a hurry, leaving Pei with his head down, writing something. I took a peek. It seemed to be sheet music. Oh, no wonder he's going to be a top-notch musician in the future. He's already writing songs now. Yuan, help your classmates when you have time. I looked up at the physics teacher. From what I remembered, he was the teacher who cared the most about his students. Maybe because he was an old man, he didn't mince his words. For example, the person next to you, since you got a full score, you can teach the classmates whose scores are still in the single digits when you have time. Pei was still writing, as if this had nothing to do with him, especially your desk mate. Pei looked up at me. I remembered, this had happened before, but in the past, we just pretended that teaching had been done after being scolded by the teacher. After all, I was a shy and introverted girl back then, and with Pei's cold face, who would dare? But this time, I looked at the old man and nodded firmly. Okay. I looked at Pei's test paper, which was full of red crosses, and was stunned, but the person beside me seemed not to care at all. He twirled his pen, as if waiting for me to speak. I said with difficulty, "It's okay." Then I grabbed a pen and started writing down the solutions one by one. After all, it would be faster for me to get a new head than to explain these problems verbally now. It was the evening break, and there weren't many people in the class. I originally thought Pei would have turned away to do his own things long ago, but when I looked up after finishing writing, he was still staring at me. There was no emotion in his eyes. I didn't know if he was looking at the test paper, the pen, or me, or maybe he was looking at me, but thinking like that was too narcissistic. Pei had always been indifferent, as if he had no emotions. If it weren't for that email, I probably would never have known that I had a place in his heart. All done. After I handed the test paper back to him, I immediately turned around and pretended to do my homework, but just a few minutes later, Pei moved the test paper back to me. I looked at him. I still don't understand this one. He pointed to a problem. Explain it to me. I stood there, stunned. Explain. Is that not okay? Okay. I took a deep breath, trying to make my words flow smoothly. But it still didn't go well. Gravity and friction, what was I talking about? Take it slow. I turned to look at the person who spoke. Jianpei smiled. Although it wasn't obvious, his lips indeed curved into a beautiful arc. Even his eyes were filled with a bit of twinkling light. The ceiling fan creaked as it turned. I suddenly remembered that a long time ago, Jianpei had also said this to me. Go ahead, it's okay to speak slowly. He was the first person other than my parents who was willing to listen to me until I finished speaking. He was also the first person to encourage me to talk more. Dong dong dong, so useless. It seemed that I had become the one who fell in love first again, this time. The relationship between Jianpei and me seemed to progress rapidly. I sat in my seat, staring straight at Jianpei. There were still a lot of people standing next to his seat, although he hardly ever replied to them. Looking at myself, I was just an unremarkable student in the class. Sometimes I would be in a trance, wondering what I, so insignificant, could do to prevent his death 10 years later. This wasn't about redemption, I just wanted to pull him out of that hellish life. Let him enjoy the sunshine on earth to the fullest. During the lunch break, Jianpei took the initiative to ask me, why were you staring at me after class? His tone wasn't cold, and he even initiated the conversation, which was a big step forward. I told him the truth. Because you're good looking. It was the first time I saw Jianpei blush. After I said this, he was first stunned for a moment, then turned his head away. A suspicious red flush appeared on his face, even reaching the tips of his ears. What's he doing? It's not like no one has ever complimented him on his looks. The girls in the class talk about how incredibly handsome he is all day long. Why didn't I see him blush then? After the bell rang, it was a half-hour nap time. I lay on the desk, but I couldn't fall asleep no matter what. So I simply opened my eyes and started looking at Jianpei intently. He had his eyes closed, and his face was facing me. I was so close that I could see each of his eyelashes clearly. Alas, how could someone be so good-looking? I was still thinking about this when Jianpei suddenly opened his eyes. The next second, my eyes were covered by a hand. I heard Jianpei's soft but gritted teeth voice in my ear. Stop looking. His voice was hoarse, and his palm was burning hot. It seemed that he was also moved. The first monthly exam was preceded by our last sports meeting. I stood under the shade of a tree, staring blankly as Jianpei ran the 3,000-meter race. I held a bottle of water that I had just bought in my hand, and it seemed to have warmed up from being held. The classmates in the class were all gathered at the front, cheering. I took a deep breath, but what came out was, come on, oh well, I give up. Jianpei was running in the lead. Every time he passed a class, there would be a burst of cheers. Oh, a future superstar. The water bottle in my hand now seemed annoying, especially when I glanced at the finish line. Several girls were already waiting there with water in their hands. They're all so beautiful. I felt inferior. I was still in a daze when the crowd suddenly erupted into cheers. I looked up and saw that Jianpei had 200 meters left and was starting his final sprint. The 18-year-old boy was like a white dove. It seemed that with just a flap of his wings, he could soar high, fly. Jianpei, don't fall this time. Jianpei crossed the finish line amidst the screams of his classmates. In the blink of an eye, he was surrounded by the crowd. I stood there, completely giving up the idea of giving him the water. I couldn't even speak properly, let alone give him water. Just as I turned back to my seat, a classmate in the front row suddenly called out to me, Wan Yuan, it seems like Jianpei is looking for you. I squeezed to the front, half believing. As soon as I arrived, I saw Jianpei looking in my direction. Then, the moment he saw me, he waved at me, motioning for me to come over. Everyone around him looked at me. I subconsciously swallowed, and with stiff hands and feet, I walked step by step towards him. Water. He held out his hand to me. I didn't react at first, and my hand subconsciously tightened around the bottle. Jianpei frowned slightly, then suddenly leaned down and whispered in my ear, consider it as me buying it. Then he took the water from my hand. The people around us exclaimed, and then started chatting noisily. Are Jianpei and Wan Yuan on such good terms? I don't think so. They don't talk much, but Wan Yuan has been explaining physics problems to Jianpei recently. He does need some tutoring in physics. My face started to feel hot. Fortunately, the teacher shouted from the side, the students who won awards in the 3,000-meter race, come to the podium to receive your awards quickly. Before Jianpei left, he looked at me, and it seemed like he said something. Wait for me. That seemed to be what his lips said. I'm done for. I'm completely under his spell. After the sports meeting, there was a rare holiday for senior 3 students. However, it was just our turn to do the cleaning this week, so Jianpei and I had to stay a little longer. After all the classmates in the class left, I picked up a broom. When I turned around, I bumped right into Jiangpei, who was going to clean the blackboard. Sorry, I couldn't speak clearly at all. What are you sorry for? Jiangpei looked at me, looking into his eyes. I held my breath for a moment, and then my mood suddenly calmed down. I didn't talk enough to you. I didn't talk to you enough. Obviously, this sentence didn't make any sense to Jiangpei at the moment. But he just lowered his eyes. When he looked up again, there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. Just talk more in the future. Why did you take my water? I asked sincerely. Jiangpei's hand, which was cleaning the blackboard, paused, and he didn't turn around. I thought it was for me. Why? I saw you holding it and looking in my direction when I was running. My eyelids twitched, and I blurted out, you saw me, this time. Jiangpei finally turned around and stared straight at me. Yeah. I saw you at a glance. When I went home, my face was still burning hot. I wore the gold medal Jiangpei gave me around my neck. Although it wasn't heavy, it was very noticeable. Is a bottle of water enough in return? He looked into my eyes. Thanks. Now I really can't say a single word. Why didn't I realize before that he was so charming? When I got home, my father was also there. When he saw the gold medal around my neck, he was taken aback for a moment but didn't say anything. However, during dinner, my mother suddenly asked me, Yuan, how's school going recently? I said without batting an eyelid, it's going well. I heard from your teacher that you've been helping your classmates with their studies recently. My father interjected, what's going on? Have you suddenly become brave? My hand, which was picking up food, paused. From what my father said, he must have called the teacher to ask, which was why he knew so much. Helping classmates. I looked at my father with no expression. The dining table suddenly fell into an awkward silence. Is that so? That's good. My father smiled and even picked up a piece of meat for me. It's good to help classmates, but don't let it affect your own grades. Yuan, you're already in senior 3. The monthly exam is next week. Right. I suddenly remembered something. For example, why wasn't I at school when we took the graduation photo? At that time, rumors spread about Jiangpei's family background, saying that he was the son of a mistress, and his father refused to acknowledge him. Then Jiangpei got into a fierce fight with the person who spread the rumors. I was there, watching Jiangpei throw punches with red-rimmed eyes. After that, they were asked to bring their parents to school, and my father came too. As we walked out of the office, my father said to me, Yuan, let's review at home for the next half month. Why? Your father is afraid you won't be able to focus. Just as he finished speaking, Jiangpei walked out of the office and heard those words clearly. Jiangpei's eyes seemed to turn red then, but it was so long ago that I'd completely forgotten about it. I put down my bowl, and the chopsticks hit the edge of the bowl with a bang. I will do well in the exam. After saying that, I picked up the bowl and left the dining table. At a little past 8 in the evening, my mother came into my room. Yuan, are you angry? No. I looked up at her. My mother said earnestly, your father called the teacher because he was afraid you'd be bullied at school, but I was clearly very happy today. I replied word by word. My mother was taken aback and said illogically, but after all, you stutter. Mom, I interrupted her for the first time. Have you ever thought that my stutter could be cured? My mother was stunned by my question. However, my stutter was completely cured in the second year after I graduated from high school, all because of Jiangpei. That summer, Jiangpei participated in a talent show. With his original song, he became an overnight sensation on the internet. At the end of the final, holding the gold trophy in one hand and the microphone in the other, he looked straight into the camera and said, I hope everyone can proudly mention me to their friends in the future. I also hope that person can see this. After saying this, the host immediately picked up on the clue. Who is this person? Jiangpei paused and then smiled. My grandfather, sitting in front of the TV, looking at the shining young man on the screen. I cried for no apparent reason. From then on, I started practicing speaking desperately. I practiced by listening to cross-talk, by listening to Jiangpei's songs, and even by mumbling to myself while taking a shower. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was because of what Jiangpei said. Or perhaps, I still wanted to have some connection with Jiangpei, even if I was just one of his small fans. Finally, half a year later, I was no longer a stutterer. Everyone around me also knew that I was a fan of Jiangpei. During the holidays, I went to the capital to watch one of his concerts. I got a seat at the very back, and I could barely see him clearly, sitting there, with his singing and the cheers of the fans in my ears. He was so dazzling on the big screen that those high school memories seemed like a beautiful dream. It was also on that day that I truly realized the gap between us. He was the moon hanging in the sky, while I was just an ordinary speck of dust. That's fine, it's not so bad. No, it's not fine at all. I don't want Jiangpei to die. Looking at my mother, I spoke in a tone more forceful than ever. Mom, I know what I'm doing. I'm already 18 years old. My mother looked at me without saying a word. When she left, she just said, "The monthly exam is next week. Review well." Looking at the Chinese textbook in my hand, for the first time, I was glad that I was at least somewhat intelligent. In my previous life, I graduated from university, got a master's degree, and then a doctorate. I spent my days focusing on physics research at the institute. High school knowledge was a piece of cake for me. I just needed to memorize more for Chinese. However, I looked up at the door of my room. I had never gone against my parents' wishes before. In my previous life, I did whatever they hoped I would do. Just now was the first time I had ever refuted them. Come to think of it, my persistent stutter was somewhat related to my parents. When I was a child, some classmates often made fun of my stutter. To protect me, my parents asked the teacher to move me to a seat next to the podium. No one dared to speak ill of me in front of me anymore. But at the same time, no one talked to me either. As I got older, they seemed to have a conditioned response. Before the start of each semester, they would go to the teacher and ask not to assign me a deskmate, fearing that I would be bullied. It wasn't until high school that they eased up a bit, but by then, I had already become withdrawn, and no one wanted to sit with me. They put a protective shield around me, but at the same time, they blocked my communication with the outside world. But this time, I'd rather not be the obedient girl. I want to do what I think is right. The day I went back to school, my father drove me there. When we arrived at the school gate, just as I was about to get out of the car, my father stopped me. "Wait, I need to talk to your teacher." My hand stopped mid-movement, and anger suddenly welled up inside me. I didn't even know why I was so angry. This wasn't like my usual personality at all. Suppressing my anger, I asked, "Why do you need to talk to the teacher?" "To ask about your situation." My father got out of the car without looking at me. I followed him. On the way to the teaching building, the atmosphere was extremely tense, and neither of us said a word. When we reached the office door, my father turned to me and said, "Why don't you go to the classroom? I also want to know about my situation." I looked at him, trying my best to appear calm. Silence. My father opened the door, and Mr. Lee was there. When he saw my father and me, he stood up from his seat. "Wan Yuan's father, what can I do for you?" My father glanced at me, as if hinting at something, and said, "I came to ask about Wan Yuan's recent situation." Huh, Mr. Lee was confused. "Wan Yuan has a new deskmate, and she's not very good at socializing, so I came to ask about it." Mr. Lee looked at me and then at my father, as if he understood something. "Yes, since Wan Yuan didn't have a deskmate, I let the new student sit next to her. But isn't it inappropriate for a boy and a girl to sit together?" My father finally revealed his true intention. He was here to change my deskmate for me, or maybe he wanted me to go back to sitting alone. Their conversation was a bit loud, and the old teacher also looked up and chimed in. "I think it's a good thing that Wan Yuan and Jiangpei sit together. Wan Yuan can even help Jiangpei with his physics, but won't this affect her studies?" My father sneered. "I heard that her new deskmate is an art student. His grades probably aren't very good, right? He has the path of art exams, but Wan Yuan can only rely on the college entrance examination." Stop. I couldn't hold back my anger anymore and interrupted my father. The office fell silent. "Whether it will have an impact or not," I said through gritted teeth, determined not to stutter as I used to, "we'll know when the exam results come out." After saying this, ignoring their reactions, I walked straight towards the door. The moment the door opened, the person standing in the corridor looked at me. It was Jiangpei. I didn't know how long he had been standing there, nor how much of the conversation in the office he had heard. He just stood there quietly, looking at me. His expression was more indifferent than I had ever seen. My eyelids twitched. Just as I was about to explain, Jiangpei turned and walked towards the classroom. He didn't say a word. "Jiangpei." I chased after him. "Do you want to change seats?" The corners of his mouth turned up, but he didn't look at me. He exuded an icy aura. Should I be timid again? A voice in my heart asked. No. I stopped, looking at his back, and shouted as loudly as I could. Jiangpei also stopped. "I don't want to change," I repeated, my heart pounding with excitement, as if it would shatter my rationality. But I didn't come back here to be a coward. This time, Jiangpei finally turned around and looked at me. What he said next shocked me. His eyes seemed to turn red again, and his voice trembled. Wan Yuan, he called my name. You weren't like this before. Why did I go back 10 years in time? After studying physics for so many years, for the first time, I was willing to believe in ghosts and gods. Maybe the gods in the sky also thought Jiangpei was a pity, so they chose me, the lucky one, to help him, but it seemed I was completely wrong. It turned out, Jiangpei wasn't the same Jiangpei as before either. During self-study, Mr. Li called me out. Wan Yuan, I've talked with your father. We'll decide whether to change your seat or not after the monthly exam results come out. The teacher also thinks that unless your grades are really affected, changing seats now would be like smearing mud on Jiangpei. Mr. Li spoke softly and patted me on the shoulder. Personally, I think you were very brave today. The moment I heard these words, tears welled up and streamed down my face. I sniffed hard, but I couldn't stop the tears. Mr. Li was startled. Don't cry. There's nothing to cry about. I wiped the tears from my face and forced a smile. It's okay. The important thing was that I didn't stand by and watch Jiangpei's tragedy unfold again. The moment I sat back in my seat, the person beside me asked softly, "Are you going to change seats?" His tone was flat, and there was no expression on his face, as if he was refusing to show his true emotions. But what about his hand that was gripping the pen tightly? The 18-year-old Jiangpei wasn't this contradictory. No, I replied. Jiangpei paused but didn't say anything, just nodded. Do you want to change? I wrote these words on a piece of paper and slid it towards Jiangpei. 2 minutes later, the paper was slid back. There were 2 lines of words, but the first line was crossed out and blackened. Only the outline could be vaguely seen. Either way is fine. The second line said, no. I turned to look at him. He was writing something with a pen. When he noticed my gaze, he looked up at me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the sheet music he was writing. The handwriting on the paper was bold and unrestrained. Nothing like the style of an 18-year-old. If you don't want to, then we won't change. This time, I'll be the brave one. The first monthly exam lasted 2 days. With the tight schedule in Senior 3, the teachers graded the papers as quickly as they could. When the results came out, Mr. Li gasped in surprise. I ranked 4th in the whole school. I hardly lost any points in math, physics, and chemistry, but in Chinese, I only got a little over 100 points. Although my grades were good before, I usually only ranked around 30th in the school. When I showed the report card to my parents, for the first time, they didn't say anything, especially my father. He stared at the report card for a long time, and finally squeezed out 2 words through his teeth. As you wish. Another piece of news, which might not be bad, was that Jiangpei ranked last in the class. That seemed reasonable, just as I was wondering if he could get into university in this life. Jiangpei's math test paper was handed out. His score was in the 20s. Starting with a 2, it was a glaring red mark, but in an instant, Jiangpei stuffed the paper into his drawer, then turned his gaze to me. Is there something? His tone was so calm as if the paper didn't belong to him. I frowned, about to say something when a voice came from the classroom door. Wan Yuan, someone is looking for you. Jiangpei and I both looked up in that direction. Fuqing stood at the door of my classroom, holding some books. Jiangpei seemed to mutter something softly. But I had already stood up and quickly ran towards Fuqing. As soon as I reached the door, I couldn't wait to stretch out my hand. Fuqing was the son of my mother's best friend, and we grew up together. When we got older, we even worked in the same city. We were each other's best friends. I was so excited when I was reborn that I forgot I could ask him for help. Why did you suddenly ask me for books on psychology? Fuqing put the books in my hand and looked straight into my eyes. It felt like he could see through all my thoughts. No wonder he would become a top-notch psychologist in the future. He already seemed to be able to read people's minds. I want to cure my stutter, I said without batting an eyelid. Actually, it was for Jiangpei. If Jiangpei was also reborn, then he probably still had psychological problems. After thinking about it for a few days, I decided not to let Jiangpei know that I was reborn for now. After all, as an 18-year-old, he didn't know about all his painful experiences in the future, and it might stimulate him. Let things take their natural course. I would tell him eventually, but I needed to wait for the right moment. Upon hearing this, Fuqing adjusted his glasses. Then you could just come to me directly. Then his gaze shifted behind me. Excuse me. The next second, a cold voice came from behind me, as if it could freeze people. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jiangpei standing behind me, looking rather unhappy. Before I could say anything, Fuqing grabbed my arm and pulled me towards him. Your father told me to keep an eye on you, and to take you home during the holidays. After these 2 sentences, Jiangpei's expression seemed to turn even colder, and Fuqing just had to add fuel to the fire. Classmate, I've made way for you, why don't you go? Seeing that the atmosphere was getting more and more awkward, I grabbed Jiangpei's sleeve. Before his face could turn any darker, I said, class is about to start, everyone, go back to your seats. I couldn't believe it. I could barely speak a complete sentence, and yet I had to play peacemaker. On the way back to our seats, Jiangpei looked uncharacteristically awkward. His eyes were fixed on the hand where I had grabbed his sleeve. I suddenly realized and let go. Jiangpei's eyes darkened slightly. Are you on good terms with him? He asked casually. Yeah, we are, I said on purpose. Rip, someone tore a strip in the just distributed test paper. I couldn't help but laugh. I regard him as my brother. Jiangpei looked at me and said in a tone that seemed to say, what does that have to do with me? Oh. That's nice. However, the corners of his mouth had already curled up. Then he pulled out the test paper that he had stuffed into the desk drawer and spread it out on the table. He got 28 points on a 150-point test paper. Fortunately, he was an art student. I took a quick look and then looked away, but I don't know what was going through someone's mind, and he moved the test paper closer to me. I looked at him. Jiangpei didn't look the least bit guilty. I think I also need someone to teach me math. As if afraid that I would refuse, he added, I've made progress in physics. How many points? 39. Oh, he might as well not have said that. During the National Day holiday, my parents took me to a temple. They burned incense and prayed to the Buddha, hoping that my grades would remain good and that I could get into a good university in the future. I knelt in front of the goddess of mercy, only praying for the safety of the people around me. Especially Jiangpei. I didn't expect that when we were about to leave, the abbot of the temple stopped me. The nearly 70-year-old man looked at me, and there seemed to be some complex emotions in his clear eyes. Little benefactor, did you come from a faraway place? A faraway place? No, it only took half an hour to drive here. No, I suddenly realized what the abbot meant. He probably saw that I didn't belong here. Yes, I nodded. The abbot nodded slightly and looked at the Buddha statue in front of us. The weather was fine, and the sunlight shone in, scattering and reflecting. It looked as if the Buddha statue was really shining. For the people around you, yes. After a few seconds of silence, the old man took out a talisman from his pocket and handed it to me. Take it, little benefactor. In everything in the world, when there is gain, there is loss. Each life has its own hardships, gain and loss, hardships. On the way back, I sat in the back seat of the car, staring at the talisman in my hand in a trance. Each life has its own hardships. Then what was my hardship in this life? It wasn't my hardship, it was Jiangpei's. After the National Day holiday, Jiangpei didn't come back to school. The person who should have been sitting next to me didn't show up all day. When handing in homework in the evening, I asked Mr. Li, why didn't Jiangpei come? Mr. Li didn't think much of it and sighed. His grandfather fell a few days ago. He doesn't have any other relatives at home, so he's been taking care of his grandfather in the hospital these days. Sigh. This kid has had a tough life. I heard that his grandfather is his only relative. I didn't listen to the rest of his words. The moment I walked out of the office, I felt more powerless than ever before. Why did he have to bear all the hardships? Didn't the gods in the sky even have a little bit of pity for him? After the lights went out at school, I stood in front of the school wall. I stepped on the garbage piled up in the corner to climb onto the wall. Then, closing my eyes, I jumped down. I didn't stand firm when I landed, and my ankle twisted. A sharp pain shot through me instantly. Hopping on one foot, I didn't delay for a second. After getting on the night shift bus, I finally had time to stretch my ankle. Looking at the city lights shining, I was in a trance for a moment. With the psychological age of 28, I actually did something like sneaking out of school over the wall at night. When I arrived at the hospital, I went to the inpatient department. Before I had searched for a few minutes, Jiangpei just came out of the ward and walked straight to the payment window. I hid around the corner. I wanted to go out, but I couldn't come up with a reason to explain why I was there. Not many lights were on in the corridor. The dim light made Jiangpei look even thinner. Before long, Jiangpei finished paying and turned to go back, but when he passed the reception desk, he stopped. After a moment of silence, he borrowed a phone from the nurse. He stood there for a long time, making call after call, but no one answered. I don't know how many times he dialed the number, but finally, the other side picked up. Hello. The person's voice was so loud that I could even hear the impatience in his tone. Jiangpei stood in the light, his expression calm. Can you lend me some money? As soon as he said this, the person on the other end exploded. Jiangpei, you don't even have my last name. Why should I give you money? calling so many times in the middle of the night. Are you crazy? Jianpei's expression didn't change. I said I'm borrowing. I'll pay you back in the future. Pay back. You're a waste of money yourself. How can I expect you to pay me back? The insults from the other side became more and more unpleasant, but Jianpei just listened quietly. When the other person stopped cursing, he asked, "So, this is what you really think?" "Yes, I." After getting the confirmation, Jianpei hung up the phone without hesitation. He stood there like the only tree on a desolate plain. I couldn't hold back anymore and walked out. Jianpei. The young man immediately looked in my direction. Surprisingly, he didn't look surprised. He didn't even ask me why I was there at that time. He just froze for a moment, then nodded and forced a bitter smile. "We meet again." Then he walked to the seat in the hall and sat down on his own. I quickly followed and sat down beside him. Jianpei didn't look at me. He just kept muttering to himself. "I thought I wouldn't see you again this time. Anyway, I just went back 10 years in time. It's not like I was truly reborn. I'm starting to wonder if the Wan Yuan at school is also a figment of my imagination. She wasn't like this before." By the end, Jianpei's voice was so low that it was almost inaudible. I bit my lower lip hard to keep the tears from falling. So that's how it was. His previous auditory and visual hallucinations were all related to me. The young man in front of me had a dull expression. His eyes were cloudy, and there was no clarity in them. "Jianpei." I reached out to him. This time, I'm not fake. Jianpei suddenly turned to look at me, his gaze fixed on my palm, but he didn't reach out to me. "I can't touch it," he muttered softly. "I've never been able to touch it." The next second, I directly grabbed his arm, ignoring his stunned expression. I placed his hand on mine and held it tightly. "Jianpei, this time, I'm not fake." Time seemed to stand still at that moment. It was so quiet around us that I could clearly hear Jianpei's increasingly rapid breathing. "Wan Yuan," he called me. His tone was exactly the same as in that email. "I'm here." I don't know how long it took, but the person beside me gradually regained clarity in his eyes. However, his gaze was still fixed on my hand holding his tightly. "I'm real," I repeated. "It's real," Jianpei murmured, then turned his gaze to me. "But it's not real either. You're not the 18-year-old Wan Yuan." He said it firmly. I was stunned for a moment, then took a deep breath. "Yes, I'm not. We both came from 10 years later." "Did I die?" After a long silence, Jianpei asked me. "In that world, yes." "Did you listen to the email I sent you?" "Yes." Jianpei seemed to understand. He stood up and tried to pull his hand away, but I held on tightly, and he couldn't pull it out. "It's late, you should go back." He seemed to be chasing me away. "No, Wan Yuan." He held my arm with his other hand and tried to push me away, as if he wanted to break free from my grip. "Don't pity me." The corners of his eyes turned red, and it seemed that he was about to cry at any moment. I was going crazy. It wasn't pity, not compassion. "I'm not pitying you. I'm here because my feelings are the same as yours." It was because we had the same feelings. It was because I liked him too. People shouldn't be too straightforward, otherwise, when they calm down, they'll blush furiously and be too embarrassed to say a word. Jianpei and I sat there, not daring to look at each other. After about 10 minutes, Jianpei asked me, "Did you skip school to come here? If he doesn't know how to chat, he doesn't have to talk." "Yeah," I replied sullenly. "Actually, I'm fine. I'm not a child anymore." As he spoke, he probably realized how ridiculous it sounded, and his voice grew softer and softer. "I don't believe it," I said bluntly. There was another moment of silence. "I'm really much better." That was the first time since I came back that the first time what? The first time, I couldn't control my emotions. I frowned. "There's no need to control them. What's there to control? Laugh when you want to laugh, cry when you want to cry, and if you want to smash this damn world, then smash it." Jianpei was stunned. "You're so different from before." "You're different too." I stared at him. It was already late at night. Only one light was on in the corridor, like a moon. I changed the subject. "How's your grandfather?" "He's okay. He just needs to be observed for a while longer." "Aren't you going to sleep later?" "It's okay. I'm not sleepy." Not sleepy. But as we were talking, his head suddenly leaned on my shoulder. He was sound asleep and wouldn't wake up no matter how much I called him. After it completely quieted down, my hand involuntarily reached out and touched Jianpei's head. His hair was quite soft and a bit greasy, but the corners of my mouth curved up involuntarily. I wasn't afraid anymore. If there were any more hardships, we could bear them together. If necessary, we could be the ones who go against the wind. Jianpei slept until almost dawn, and I had to shake him awake. I had to catch the early morning bus back to school. After reminding him several times not to bear things alone if anything happened, I turned to leave. 1 yuan, Jiangpei called out to me. I turned around and looked at him. The morning light shone on Jiangpei, and I thought I saw his eyes shining brightly. Will you come again later? Yes, as long as he was there, I would come. The school has 1 day off a week. Actually, it's not a full day at all. School ends at 3 p.m., and we have to be back at school before 9 a.m. The next day, as soon as Mr. Lee announced the end of class, I grabbed my bag and rushed out of the classroom, planning to go to the hospital to see Jiangpei and his grandfather. As soon as I reached the door, I ran into Fu Qing, who had said he would take me home. He looked at me for a few seconds, as if he could read my mind. Where are you going? Nowhere. Fu Qing stared into my eyes, and the next sentence sent a chill down my spine. You skipped school on Monday night, didn't you? Huh. I pretended not to understand. On Monday, I happened to be on patrol after the lights went out. The young man in front of me had an unchanged expression. I saw. Before he could finish, I covered his mouth. Then I lowered my head to confess and humbly begged for mercy. Don't tell anyone. I really had something very important to do that day. Fu Qing's gaze shifted to my hand, and then he nodded. But as soon as I let go, I heard him say, so you really did skip school. I'm not on the patrol team, Fu Qing analyzed calmly. I just happened to see you sneaking in from outside the school gate on Tuesday morning. I just tested you earlier, but my words just now had clearly confirmed his guess. Where were you planning to go? The hospital. To see who? Jiangpei. Fu Qing didn't respond immediately. After a long silence, he stepped aside to make way for me. You can go, but I'm coming with you. In the ward, I met Jiangpei's grandfather for the first time. The old man was kind-looking, completely different from Jiangpei's personality. Fu Qing waited for me at the door of the ward and didn't come in. I handed the organized review materials to Jiangpei, taking advantage of his grandfather's presence. I hinted at his studies. It's senior 3. Study hard, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to get into university in this life. Jiangpei clearly understood the meaning behind my words. His hand froze as he took the books. Grandfather happily echoed me from the side. Yes, listen to your little deskmate and study hard. As he spoke, he grabbed me and told me a lot of stories about Jiangpei's childhood. For example, when he was a child, he was so delicate looking that the girls in kindergarten insisted on playing house with him and made him be the mother. Another example was that when he was a child, he was too playful to do his homework. After being scolded, he ran away from home. But his grandfather didn't even notice he was gone. In the end, he came back home crying with a head full of mosquito bites. Jiangpei couldn't stand it anymore and walked out of the ward. After Jiangpei closed the door of the ward, the smile on grandfather's face faded a bit. 1 yuan. Grandfather held my hand and sighed. Jiangpei's mother passed away early, and his father died even earlier. He's always had a stern face since he was a child. Don't take it to heart. But I think he's been in a good mood recently. He often smiles for no reason. Anyway, if he bullies you, tell grandfather, and I'll teach him a lesson. Grandfather talked to me for a long time. Finally, Jiangpei came in and interrupted him. It's almost 5 o'clock. She still needs to go home for dinner. Before leaving, Jiangpei said to me a little awkwardly, I'll be back at school in a few days. Okay, I nodded. After a few seconds of silence, Jiangpei spoke again. I remember everything you said last time. He lowered his head, his voice becoming softer. So, I'll work hard. On the way home, I was thinking about how to ask Fu Qing to spare me and not tell my parents what he knew. But before I could say anything, Fu Qing asked me first. Was it also for him that you asked me for those books last time? Yes. Do you like him? Yes. My mouth answered this question faster than my brain could think. Oh no. I had just added another charge of puppy love to my list of crimes. Oh, unexpectedly, Fu Qing just nodded slightly. Don't worry, I won't tell your parents about this. Huh. I stood there, thinking I had misheard, but Fu Qing kept walking, and his pace was getting faster and faster. I just had a chat with him. He seems like a nice guy, but he's a bit depressed. You can remind him to see a doctor. That's good, he said. We've known each other for so many years. And this is the first time I've seen you be so brave. It seems like you've become an adult before me. A few days later, as he promised, Jiangpei returned to school and focused on his studies. In November, art exam policies were introduced in various provinces. Other art students in the school took leave for art exam training, but only Jiangpei remained in the classroom for classes. It wasn't that he was overly confident in himself, it was simply because he didn't have the money. His family originally had little savings, and his grandfather's hospitalization cost a large sum. If I hadn't kept an eye on him, he would have planned to eat instant noodles that cost 2 yuan per pack every day. It's so tough. How could it be this tough? I lay on the desk, feeling miserable. He somehow sensed my emotions and instead comforted me. Just because we don't have money now doesn't mean we'll never have it. I still have the money for the travel expenses to take the exams. Better not comfort me. The two of us, with a combined psychological age of almost 60, can't scrape together more than a few dollars. All I seem to be able to do is stay by his side and help him with his math, physics, and chemistry, where his average scores are less than 40. At the beginning of December, Jianpei took a half-month leave to take exams at major art universities across the country, so every day after the evening self-study. I was always the first one to rush out of the classroom, all for the sake of running to the school phone booth and making a call to him. Calls from the school phone automatically hung up after 3 minutes. In order to talk to him more, my stutter was almost cured. Did you eat well today? A helpless reply came from the other end. Yes, I ate KFC, the beef buns sold at the stall outside the door. They're delicious, 5 yuan each. How about your mood? I was afraid he would have an episode while he was away. Not bad. Jianpei seemed to be smiling on the other end, but I'm extremely happy right now. When I returned to the dormitory, my roommates thought I had a fever. Otherwise, why was my face as red as a ripe tomato? The day Jianpei came back, the small southern city unexpectedly had a heavy snowfall. When he entered the classroom with his bag on his back, the snowflakes on his shoulders hadn't melted yet. They sparkled and looked beautiful. However, he seemed to have lost a lot of weight. It happened to be a physics class. The old teacher was lecturing vigorously on the podium, while Jianpei secretly took something out of his bag and stuffed it to me. It was a metal badge related to the Little Prince, the protagonist of my favorite story. The badge was very exquisite, with the main part depicting the Little Prince standing on planet B612, along with his rose. This time, the Little Prince found his rose. Jianpei said softly. My vision gradually blurred. Am I the Little Prince or the Rose? The Little Prince who traveled through countless planets and finally mustered the courage to search for his rose. Jianpei, come and solve this problem on the blackboard. I don't know how. This year, the Spring Festival came particularly early. After the New Year's Eve dinner, I lay on the sofa and took a short nap, then had a dream. In the dream, there were 2 paths in front of me. At the end of one path was Jianpei. At the end of the other path was me at the age of 28. A voice echoed in my heart. Choose one. Choose one. Without the slightest hesitation, I walked over to Jianpei. Have you made your choice? Yes, I have. As soon as I nodded, the sound of fireworks outside the window woke me up from my dream. Looking at the time, only a few minutes had passed. The fireworks outside the window were still bursting. I grabbed my phone, ran to the balcony, and dialed a number. Hello, Jianpei's voice came from the phone. Jianpei, I just had a dream. There was a moment of silence on the other end, and then he asked me, what kind of dream? I dreamed about choosing between you and myself. Unexpectedly, Jianpei didn't ask me which one I finally chose. He just said, now that you mention it, I also had a similar dream before. In the dream, at the end, he asked me if I wanted to wake up. What did you choose? He was taken aback. Guess. TCH, I looked up at the fireworks bursting in the sky. Jianpei, the new year is almost here. Yeah, after the new year, we'll be another year older. After the new year, we would be 19 years old together. Just a few days after New Year's Eve, the hard-working senior high school seniors had to go back to school. With less than half a year left until the college entrance examination, almost everyone focused all their attention on review, and Jianpei needed to work even harder. Although his art exam scores were incredibly excellent, if his college entrance examination scores didn't reach the admission line, no matter how good his art exam results were, they would be useless. Fortunately, in the new semester, our seats remained unchanged. Of course, I took it upon myself to give him extra tutoring. After all, he couldn't understand much of what was taught in class, but after tutoring him for a long time, sometimes I didn't have time to finish my own homework. After this happened several times, Mr. Lee had an opinion and even called me to the office to scold me. It's a good thing to help classmates, but you also need to take care of your own grades. But this was the only time, because in the following mock exams, I ranked first in the whole school every time. And I remained the top scorer in math, physics, and chemistry without exception. If a student has good grades, they are treated like a treasure everywhere. After that, Mr. Lee never bothered me about whether I handed in my homework or not. Well, actually, I still had to hand in my Chinese homework because I only scored around 110 points every time. Jianpei's grades also improved rapidly, perhaps due to his mature psychological age. although he didn't have much knowledge stored in his mind. He studied in an orderly manner, coupled with his non-stop studying. In the last mock exam, his total score exceeded the previous year's admission line by 40 or 50 points. Half a month before the college entrance examination, we took graduation photos. Standing next to him, I suddenly remembered that something hadn't developed according to the previous trajectory. For example, this time, no one spread rumors about Jianpei's family background, and Jianpei didn't get into a fight. And when taking the graduation photo, I was truly standing beside him, while the photographer was still adjusting the equipment. I poked Jianpei and told him my discovery. That's because the person who spread the rumors before was jealous that I often outshone him by performing in school activities. Jianpei was a bit speechless. Oh, that explains it. In the past 6 months, Jianpei had been buried in doing practice questions day and night, not participating in any school activities. He didn't even have the chance to interact with that person, let alone have a conflict. Classmates, are you ready? The photographer called out in front. I looked at the camera, but my hand hidden by my side couldn't stay still. Secretly, I hooked one of Jianpei's fingers. Jianpei, Mr. Lee called out to him when looking at the photos. You seem to be in a great mood today. The college entrance examination passed by in a flash, so quickly that it felt like a dream. This time, I was admitted to a key university in the north, whose physics department was one of the best in the country. Jianpei was also admitted to a conservatory of music in the capital. The school held a graduation ceremony at the end of July and specially invited Jianpei as a guest performer. Mr. Lee said to me during a casual chat, if this kid becomes famous in the future, our school will make a fortune. Yeah, he has good judgment. Jianpei's performance was the opening act. He held a guitar and sang Rice Field on stage, making the audience cheer loudly. After he finished singing, I waited for him off stage, but he didn't come back. My phone vibrated. When I took it out, it was a message from Jianpei. I'm in the classroom, with everyone gathered in the school auditorium. The teaching building had never been so quiet. It was so quiet that I could clearly hear my pounding heartbeat. The classroom was on the 4th floor. Just as I reached the mezzanine between the 3rd and 4th floors, I saw Jianpei. He was sitting on the steps, propping his face with one hand and smiling. I stopped 3 or 4 meters away from him. What's up? There's a song I've always wanted to sing to you in person but never did. Wan Yuan. Is it still too late to sing it now? Was it still too late? We used to be cowards. We clearly liked each other but missed out on 10 years. With red eyes, I said, it's not too late. Time went back 10 years, and we had gone through so much together. This time, Jianpei sat on the steps with a guitar in his arms, looking at me, and sang that song again. The song he had only sung to me, the song written only for me. Finally, after the last note faded, I mustered up the courage to say the words that had been buried in my heart. Jianpei, I like you. Jianpei smiled, his eyes bright, and reached out his hand to me. So, can we hold hands? Can we walk forward together? The moment our fingers touched, Jianpei stood up and embraced me. I like you too, like you so much. It was our first love, like the sunlight that falls on you in summer, not scorching hot, because a breeze has blown by. Before going to university to register, I went to the temple again. This time, I went with Jianpei. This time, it was Jianpei who knelt devoutly in front of the Guanyin statue and prayed. I stood by and watched him, smiling. I thought you wouldn't believe in this kind of thing. It had been a full year since we were reborn, and my stutter was almost completely cured. Jianpei looked at me. Shouldn't I be the one saying that? Oh, he's right. I almost forgot that I used to study physics. There was a fairly well-known love tree outside the temple, with red ribbons hanging from its branches. At a glance, most of the ribbons had the names of both parties written on them. I stared at them for a long time. Just as I was about to ask Jianpei if he wanted to hang one too, I turned around and saw that he already had a red ribbon in his hand. Why didn't you ask me? I wanted to tease him. Jianpei narrowed his eyes. You don't want to? Yes, I do. I blinked. I just didn't expect that the famous Mr. Jiang would be so proactive. This time, Jianpei didn't blush, but when hanging the ribbon, he suddenly said, you took 99 steps towards me. I have to take the last step, actually. That's not true. Jianpei took the first step too. He took that extremely important first step, which led to our current happy ending. When we were about to leave, a monk in the temple stopped Jianpei, saying that the abbot wanted to talk to him. I waited outside the room. It would be a lie to say I wasn't worried. After all, after the abbot stopped me last time, things didn't go so well, but then I thought, it didn't matter. No matter what hardships came our way, we were going to be together. When Jianpei came out, his expression didn't change. On the way down the mountain, I asked him, "What did the abbot say to you?" Jianpei paused, then replied honestly, "I forgot. He talked a lot in classical Chinese, and I didn't understand. But I did understand the last sentence." "What was it?" "He congratulated me on finally coming through all the hardships." The story that followed could indeed be described as after suffering comes happiness. During his freshman year, Jianpei registered an account on a certain video sharing platform and became one of the first music bloggers. He didn't show his face, but with his original songs, he easily became a top recommended blogger on the platform. Then, when netizens suspected that he might not be good looking, he participated in a talent show and debuted first by a huge margin. The thoughts of a 30-year-old man. He's quite good at playing hard to get. Of course, his biological father still had the nerve to come and ask him for money in this life, but a long time ago, the last bit of their relationship was severed by his father's own actions. Jianpei didn't give him a single cent, so his father went online to complain and appeared on TV shows, severely criticizing Jianpei for not recognizing his own father on the shows. Then Jianpei sued him in court for abandonment, extortion, and slander. Each charge was enough to send him to prison for a while, and when it came to using the internet, how could he possibly compare to Jianpei, who had been in the entertainment industry for 8 or 9 years? In the end, he ended up ruined and had to serve an 8-year prison sentence. As for me, I just remained an ordinary college student. But because I had already learned all the knowledge, I ranked first in my major in every exam. Then my supervisor invited me to participate in research and write SCI papers. When I got busy, I could go a whole day without replying to Jianpei's messages. The consequence of often not checking my phone was that I learned about my boyfriend's rumored romances from the casual conversations of my junior female classmates. Jianpei had declared from the beginning that he wasn't single, but he had never revealed any information about me, so it was reasonable that netizens paired him up with others. While I was still browsing Weibo to catch up on the so-called gossip, my father suddenly called. As soon as I answered, I heard him angrily say, "Is the news about Jianpei on the internet true?" I even regarded him as my future son-in-law. "I was nice to him the last time he sent you home." I found it funny and deliberately asked, "When did you start regarding him as your son-in-law? Didn't you think he would affect me before?" This time, it was my father's turn to stutter and be at a loss for words. "The news is fake." I laughed. If I didn't have this much confidence, I might as well break up with Jianpei. Sure enough, that night, Jianpei posted on Weibo, "I have a girlfriend. I've liked her for many years," as shown in the picture. The picture was of 2 1-yuan coins. For a time, there were all kinds of speculations, so he added a comment, "Her study and work require a quiet environment, and I don't want anyone to disturb her." When I saw this comment, my head was resting on Jianpei's shoulder. He took a 3-hour high-speed train to my city, just to snuggle up with me on the sofa and watch a movie. The story on the screen was coming to an end. The protagonists hugged each other and then kissed passionately. I was watching intently, but Jianpei raised his hand and covered my eyes. "What are you doing? Don't look at improper things." Just as I was about to mock him for pretending to be innocent at his age, I felt a soft and moist touch on my lips, along with the warm breath exhaled by Jianpei. I don't know how long the kiss lasted. It lasted until my whole body started to heat up and I let out a whimper. Then Jianpei finally let me go. "1 yuan, he smiled, his voice hoarse and sexy, but there were tears in his eyes. "I love you." The song Jianpei wrote for me was never released. When I asked him why after we got married, Jianpei's face turned red, which was a rare sight. "Because it's a song exclusively for you. Because it's a memory exclusive to us." Epilogue, virtual. When did Jianpei realize that his condition had become more severe? It was when he saw 1 yuan. He had originally thought that he was just severely depressed, but that was still manageable. After taking his medication, he could constrainedly fall asleep, albeit in a groggy state, unable to distinguish between reality and dreams. But after waking up from a dream one day, he was sweating. As soon as he got out of bed, he suddenly heard a noise coming from the living room. When he went over to check, the sight of someone's back made his heart skip a beat. Time seemed to stand still at that moment. 1 yuan was wearing the white shirt she used to wear most often in high school, with her back to him. While Jianpei was still in a daze, 1 yuan turned around and saw him. "Desk mate," she called him slowly, smiling. Jianpei understood almost immediately that this was just his imagination. 1 yuan would never smile at him like that. the doctor's words echoed in his ears. This illness may cause symptoms of auditory and visual hallucinations later on, and that's when it gets really serious. He seemed to know everything, but he still couldn't help approaching her. Jiang Pei. Wang Yuan looked up at him, her tone more cheerful than he had ever heard. Long time no see. This was the person he had been thinking about for so long, the one he softly called out to every late night when he couldn't fall asleep. This was the fabricated, virtual Wang Yuan. Jiang Pei tugged at the corners of his mouth, but warm tears escaped from his eyes. Long time no see, Wang Yuan. So what if it was virtual? He might as well consider it a lucid dream. It was his deepest, most hidden secret. Are you feeling unwell anywhere recently? No, I reserved the first seat for the concert as you asked, but I didn't see your friend come. Why, she came. She was here. I saw her. Maybe she left in a hurry. It was another rainy day with heavy downpours. Jiang Pei sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, with Wang Yuan beside him. The thunder outside was so loud that it made his head spin. Wang Yuan, he called her softly. I'm here. Jiang Pei turned to look at her. He must have been out of his mind because he slowly leaned towards Wang Yuan. Just this once, let him cross the line, but when his lips were just 1 centimeter away from hers, he stopped. He lost his courage once again. What's wrong? Her voice reached his ears. It even seemed like he could feel her warm breath, which was too real. He was silent for a moment, and finally smiled. It's nothing. What was Wang Yuan to him? She was the intimacy he had never had and couldn't grasp. She was the virtual presence who accompanied him day and night yet remained out of reach. In the end, his manager noticed something was wrong. His schedule was forcibly interrupted, and he was confined to his home. He had to receive treatment from a doctor every day and take countless capsules. Wang Yuan also disappeared. His heart felt empty in an instant, and the virtual dream finally shattered. He suddenly felt regretful. He should have been braver. If he had been braver, he could have kissed Wang Yuan. If he had been a little braver, would everything not have been just a virtual dream, a foolish dream? Jiang Pei had a dream that lasted a very long time, so long that he felt as if he had lived his life all over again, so long that he could no longer tell the difference between reality and the void. In fact, he didn't want to wake up at all. He vaguely remembered what he had done before falling into a deep sleep. He must have had an episode. In front of him appeared a black sea, as dark as ink, where anything that entered would be swallowed up. He was no exception. At that moment, he suddenly felt tired. It was hard to explain. Maybe he also felt a sense of relief. Anyway, he couldn't hold on to anything he wanted to. In a trance, he suddenly thought of Wang Yuan, the little stutterer, also a fool. The big bad guy who hadn't contacted him for years and had left him behind, but also the star he had yearned for until the very last moment. He struggled to get to the computer, calmly set a time, and sent an email to Wang Yuan. Then, exhausted, he collapsed to the floor. It was the last step he had mustered the courage to take. After a long time, he involuntarily got up, took his sedatives, and popped them into his mouth one by one like candies. When sleepiness overcame him, he became a little more sober. His hand struggled to reach for the water on the table, but he ended up knocking over the glass and cutting his hand. Scarlet blood dripped onto the floor, and it seemed as if something had broken. Bang! In a daze, he seemed to have returned to the time when he first met Wang Yuan in senior high school. But this time, Wang Yuan seemed different. She no longer seemed as silent and shy as in his memory. She would take the initiative to talk to him, stutteringly introduce herself, and loudly say okay when the old teacher asked her to explain problems to him. She had also become much bolder, daring to look straight at him and even saying that he was good-looking. It must be a dream. It had to be a dream. Yet, he was greedy. Everything felt too real, making it impossible for him to tell whether it was reality or a dream. He heard someone's heartbeat, pounding loudly in his ears. He could clearly see the texture of her lips and smelled a faint fragrance on her. Wang Yuan even took the initiative to grab his hand and hold it tightly in hers. Jiang Pei, her voice was clear. I'm here. I'm right here. By his side, the sea lost its color. His world was no longer a silent darkness. When his consciousness was on the verge of drowning, a voice asked him, do you want to wake up? Should he wake up? Jiang Pei thought. He might as well just keep sleeping, even if it was a dream. He would accept it. He simply couldn't bear a world without Wang Yuan. Worst case scenario, it was just a foolish dream. Worst case scenario, he would just sleep forever. The long season, the winter in City Z suddenly felt extremely long to Fuqing. On the day of the first snowfall, Fuqing got off work early, which was a rare occurrence. Then he went to the flower shop downstairs and bought a new bouquet of lily of the valley. He only ever bought lily of the valley. To the extent that whenever the shop assistants saw him, they would directly say, "Today's lily of the valley is also very fresh." Another bouquet, he nodded slightly, but this time he added, "Please wrap it nicely." The shop assistant smiled. "Are you giving these to someone this time?" After all, he had never requested special packaging before. Fuching was taken aback for a moment, and finally just nodded. In fact, he had always been giving the flowers to someone, with the flowers in hand. Fuching went straight to the hospital. As the new year approached, the hospital was quiet and deserted. The young nurse at the front desk already knew him well. After greeting him, she let him go to Ruan Yuan's ward. He opened the door of the ward and immediately saw Ruan Yuan lying on the bed, as if she were asleep. After placing the flowers by her bedside, Fuching sat down. Ruan Yuan seemed to have lost even more weight compared to the last time he visited. She was already a small, framed person, and now she looked even tinier. Fuching looked at her quietly for a long time. The doctor had already told him that the chance of Ruan Yuan waking up was slim, because upon observation, it seemed that she simply had no motivation to wake up and return to the real world. To be honest, he didn't understand. He didn't understand why Ruan Yuan, who had always been silent and timid, chose to act bravely when she happened to see a high school student attempting to jump into the river a year ago. Judging from the surveillance footage, she didn't hesitate at all. She followed the person and plunged into the icy river. She saved the person, but she herself hadn't woken up yet due to staying in the water for too long. Why? Was it because she couldn't bear to see someone so young lose their life? Or was it because the person's back resembled someone else's? He still remembered that when he rushed to the hospital, Ruan Yuan's parents were crying uncontrollably, and her mother almost fainted in the hospital corridor. Did she really not consider the consequences of doing this at all? Fuching unconsciously clenched his fists, and a sour feeling welled up in his throat. Ruan Yuan had approached him on her own initiative after Jiang Pei's death. In the consultation room, she kept her head down, with red-rimmed eyes. "Recently, I can't sleep at all through the night. Every time I close my eyes, I feel like crying." Finally, she looked up and asked him, "Fuching, am I sick?" Ruan Yuan played the last email Jiang Pei sent to her for him. After the audio ended, he could no longer remain calm. "Ruan Yuan, he's such a coward. All these years, he had countless opportunities to send you this. Why did he have to do it now? Why did he send Ruan Yuan this email? Why make the living bear such guilt?" Jiang Pei was clearly a scumbag, but Ruan Yuan unexpectedly calmed down. "Yes, he's a coward. A few days ago, a lawyer came to me and gave me a large sum of money, saying it was a voluntary gift from Jiang Pei. Do you remember that I received a lot of gifts on my birthdays during college? It turns out he was the one who sent them, but I always sent them back untouched." Yes, what he did, to put it bluntly, was self-indulgent. In the end, tears welled up in Ruan Yuan's eyes. "But the problem is, I like him too." Ding, Ruan Yuan herself had revealed the root of all the problems. Because they liked each other, that's why the pain was suffocating. Even Fuching's heart ached sharply. Finally, in a daze, he asked her, "Did it start from high school?" "I took several days off and stayed at home." He only Fuching, "I'm a coward too." This was the last thing Ruan Yuan said to him. Cowards. Fuching's gaze shifted to the flowers on the bedside. Lily of the valley. Ruan Yuan wasn't particularly interested in flowers, but she loved this one the most, because its flower language was returning happiness. It was still snowing outside the window, and the snow was falling even more heavily. The dense snowflakes seemed to want to bury the whole world. Fuching took a deep breath. They were all cowards, and no one could blame the others, but this winter was just too long. He had never seen such a long season. Story 2. In a previous life, on the day I fell from a building and lost my sight, my fiancé was on the hospital rooftop kissing his first love. When he saw my mangled body, he had a sudden change of heart, lamenting his belated realization. "It was you who started from scratch with me, who stood by me through thick and thin. How could I have been so blinded by her?" I looked at the anguished man with disdain, a tear of self-mockery rolling down my cheek. After being reborn, his first love kissed him passionately, cruelly mocking me for my foolish hopes, confident that the now impoverished man would one day achieve great success and wealth. She was wrong. Without my help, her man would remain nothing but a reckless fool with lofty ambitions but no substance. 7 days after losing my sight in a car accident, lying in the hospital bed, I seemed to have grown accustomed to the darkness that greeted my open eyes. Perhaps because I woke up early from my nap today, Rania wasn't in the room. In the hallway, the two nurses taking care of me were gossiping. Mr. Ran and Miss Meng are truly a match made in heaven. The proposal ceremony was the talk of the town. Mr. Ran's kneeling was like a scene out of a romantic schoolyard confession from back in the day. Weren't you and Mr. Ran from the same school? How come I heard that the one who's blind and lying in the hospital bed is actually Mr. Rant's fiancée? She's at best a persistent suitor of Mr. Rant's, and quite shameless at that. She rode the coattails of the IT elite for years, even disowning her own parents. People like her deserve to end up disabled. Mr. Ran meets Miss Meng on the rooftop every day at this time. They're really sweet together. I bit my lip hard, feeling a suffocating ache in my chest. As if a sharp knife was slicing through my organs, I stifled my sobs. The man who whispered in my ear before nap time, promising to celebrate my birthday with me upon waking, was already entangled with his first love. Memories flooded back, piercing my mind like shards of glass, shattering my last defenses. A grand proposal, a perfect match. They were indeed well suited for each other. What was I then? A joke? I fumbled out of bed, and not 2 steps later, I tripped over a chair. Pain shooting through my knee. The nurses at the door, upon hearing the noise, laughed and pretended not to see my plight. Leaving together, I had grown used to this. My body bore many bruises from bumps and scrapes, unnoticed by the nurses, and so far undiscovered by Ranyao. He was always busy, glancing at me briefly before being whisked away by trivial company matters. Now I understood. He was just fitting me in during a break from his dates with Meng Wanqiu. Not wanting anyone to see my disheveled state, I groped along the wall to the stairwell. The hospital stairs were long, and the pain of a broken rib in my chest sounded an alarm through my body. I clenched my lips, suppressing the taste of blood in my throat, driven to confront him for an answer. Perhaps because the cleaning staff had just mopped, I slipped unexpectedly, a slight sound coming from my ankle as I fell to the ground. In that instant, memory surged, during a physical test years ago. I sprained my ankle and fell on the track field. Ranya rushed through the crowd to me, his lips pursed with worry, carrying me to the infirmary. Afraid I was in pain, he gently massaged my ankle along the way. The doctor advised me to walk less, so he took it upon himself to carry me to and from school. At the age of 16 or 17, he carried me up and down the 6 flights of stairs of the old-style residential building. The boy in my memories shone like a brilliant meteor streaking across the night sky, once illuminating my youth but now as unfamiliar as a stranger. I leaned against the wall to support myself, the pain in my ankle intensifying with each step, until I reached the rooftop and touched the iron door. The car accident was truly an accident. It's all my fault. I noticed there was a problem with the brakes that day, but I got distracted and forgot to tell you. The low male voice gently comforted the sobbing woman, his tone full of pity. I could almost see the pain in his eyes. Forget it. What's done is done. If anyone is to blame, it's just Lu Mu's bad luck. The young man and woman whispered softly, their voices tender and affectionate, quickly turning into sounds of suppressed passion. The fear of near death from the accident still lingered in my body, causing me to tremble all over, each breath cutting through my chest like a knife. I had lost my sight, broken 3 ribs, yet all I got in return was his remark about my bad luck. The betrayal of a lover was more terrifying than darkness. As I opened the iron door and stepped out, I despairingly realized that I couldn't discern their location. I wanted to curse, to vent, to denounce Io's betrayal, but when the words reached my lips, all that came out was a choke. In my panic, I felt a harsh push from behind. The pain in my ankle worsened. I stumbled forward, then suddenly felt myself hanging in the air, plummeting straight down. As my soul separated from my shattered limbs, I saw Io rushing over clumsily. People surrounded my body. He forcefully made his way through the crowd, pausing in shock when he saw my twisted corpse, then abruptly stepped back, watching his expression turn from blank to stiff, his cheeks twitching as if in agony. He rushed forward and slowly knelt by my feet. My blood, still warm, soaked his neat suit pants. It seemed to scald him, his body trembling violently. Seeing his expression darken with sorrow, I felt, for a moment, that Io might have truly cared for me. Io, the dead cannot be brought back. Mourn and move on. Meng Wanqiu stepped forward to pull Io away, but he shook off her hand as if electrocuted, stumbling backwards, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the ground, his eyes filled with resentment towards her. Some advised him to mourn and move on, others noted his deep feelings, yet Io seemed deaf to the world, his back bent severely, his shoulders shaking. He frantically tried to realign my dislocated bones, to wipe the blood from my face, but it just wouldn't come off. He closed his eyes briefly, overwhelmed by sorrow, unable to face my lifeless gaze. Helplessly, he withdrew his hands, his face deathly pale, his voice hoarse and broken. Xiaomu, I'm sorry, it should have been me who died. Why wasn't it me? This belated affection seemed to me now cheaper than dirt. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn on the college basketball court. The tall figure in front of me, back slightly bent, had been kneeling under the scorching sun for half an hour. It was my lover from a past life, Io. He had just been rejected by the girl he adored under the moonlight, surrounded by a crowd of onlooking students. Some mocked him as a poor boy aiming too high. Others pitied him for not exploring more options. Just then, a malicious voice emerged from the crowd. Lu Mu, don't you like Io? Take this chance while he's heartbroken. Maybe it'll give you a chance to strike when the iron is hot. Laughter erupted around us, and the young man's gaze slowly shifted towards me, his dark eyes sparkling. At this moment, he lacked the composure and the slackness brought on by wealth of his later years. His expression was aloof and rebellious. And there was a hint of barely noticeable ambition. I used to be captivated by the pride in his gaze, always feeling that he had an unreachable sense of aloofness. Looking back now, it's absurd. He was just an ordinary person. It was my affection that cast him in a different light. In my past life, I pitied him when he was mocked by everyone, holding a special affection for him deep in my heart. I openly declared my feelings. Picking up his trampled sincerity from the mud where Meng Wanqiu had left it, presenting it to him along with my own heart, giving him the dignity and vanity a man deserves. If I could do it all over again, I'd rather see him kneel and perish on the field. Just as Ran Yao was confident I'd come to his rescue, the crowd suddenly parted, a figure returned. It was Meng Wanqiu. She was drenched in sweat, gasping for air as she clutched her chest, and with a long arm, she shielded Ran Yao behind her. Glaring at me viciously, Ran Yao is mine, give up on him, she hissed. I slowly curled my lips into a smile. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who was reborn. In my previous life, Meng Wanqiu never ended up with Ran Yao. She had planned to use Ran Yao's fame and fortune to help her bankrupt father make a comeback. But after my death, Ran Yao inexplicably sold off our company, valued at billions, and donated all the money to charity, keeping none for himself. Meng Wanqiu desperately ran to the apartment Ran Yao and I once shared, skillfully entering the password to let herself in. Under the dim light, a disheveled man surrounded by bottles and cigarette ashes held my photo. Drunk and unconscious, Meng Wanqiu cried incessantly, hoping her tender words would win back the man's affection. Ran Yao, look at me. I'm the one alive and by your side. Forget her, please. Originally, you liked me. She pleaded. She tried everything, even stripping naked, only to receive a self-mocking glance from him. Originally, it was she who started from scratch with me, who faced difficulties with me. How could I be fooled by someone like you, who only loves vanity? Meng Wanqiu cried even harder, shaking her head repeatedly. No, I had a reason for rejecting you initially. My father forced me to go abroad. Ran Yao, I've always liked you, whether you were a poor boy or a rich man. My feelings for you will never change. Let's pull ourselves together. We can start another company. You are talented and gifted. You can certainly make it great again. Ran Yao pushed her away, letting the broken glass cut into her skin without a second glance. Furious, Meng Wanqiu cursed at my grave day after day, saying I wouldn't let her have peace even in death, that I still monopolized Ran Yao's heart from below the ground. The luxury I enjoyed while alive should have been hers. If only she hadn't rejected Ran Yao back then, there would have been no place for me. I sat on my grave, watching her with amusement. The once scorned poor boy, now a successful IT mogul after a few years, the once proud and untroubled rich girl, now fallen from grace, realized that her former suitors had made their fortune. He longed to return to the past, a decision akin to the folly of craving the grass behind him. How could one expect to achieve anything substantial without putting in the effort? Ran Yao's current success was not handed to him on a silver platter. I was the one who entertained investors and drank until my stomach bled. I worked tirelessly through nights, revising project proposals. It was I who helped Ran Yao ascend to his current esteemed position, earning him widespread adoration and applause. Otherwise, with his proud and impulsive nature, he would have been devoured in the ruthless business world, leaving nothing behind, not even bones. Meng Wanqiu obviously couldn't hear the pleas of my heart. Her venomous gaze fell upon my photograph, her face twisting grotesquely. If I were given another chance, I would never let go of Ran Yao. And in another life, she did just that. Meng Wanqiu grabbed Ran Yao by the hand, pulling him up from the plastic track, and picked up a dust-covered rose from the ground. She carefully dusted it off, her arrogance mixed with a smug confidence. Ah Yao, from today onwards, you are mine. The scene before everyone was shocking. Just moments before, the school beauty had been angrily mocking her impoverished suitor. The next second, she was on her tiptoes, planting a kiss on him, claiming her ownership publicly. Ranyao was clearly stunned, confusion overshadowing his joy as his eyes frantically searched the surroundings, finally resting on me. That look was all too familiar. Whenever he faced a problem or felt uncertain, he would seek my help with that same expression. Lu Mu. President Song of Qianhua has a gathering tonight. Will you accompany me? You know the project details better than I do. The company still needs 10 million for the first round of financing. Lu Mu, give it another try. The vice president of Yuan Guan Group was quite impressed with you last time. Even now, I remained his childhood friend, having stood by his side for many years. The affection from our childhood, the support we provided each other as adults. The countless nights we spent together, yet Ranyao allowed me to become blind in a car accident without holding Meng Wanqiu even slightly accountable. A chilling coldness crept up my spine. Could their involvement have also pushed me off that building? Ranyao's gaze lingered on me a bit too long, causing Meng Wanqiu's brow to furrow in anger. She stubbornly tiptoed and hooked her arms around his neck, delivering a kiss that was both intense and passionate. The sensational applause and cheers erupted around us. I pursed my lips, slightly raising my eyebrows, and joined the crowd in applauding. As Meng Wanqiu wished, it didn't take long for almost everyone on campus to know that the school beauty had madly fallen for a poor boy. She shadowed Ranyao every day, whether it was in the professional classrooms or the student cafeteria. Their intimate and affectionate demeanor was evident to all. Meng Wanqiu's parents, however, were displeased and confronted the couple at the school gate. Wan, come home with us. We've arranged for you to study abroad. If you want to date, your father knows many well-educated boys from distinguished families. This poor boy, reeking of poverty, is not worthy of you. Meng Wanqiu sensed the man beside her growing tense, his expression suddenly darkening. Dad, what are you talking about? Ya wins scholarships every year. He's outstanding. Her father scoffed. Those scholarships, are they enough for a trip to a Michelin-starred restaurant, or enough to buy a new designer bag? Don't lose your sense over a man. Our family provides you with a comfortable life. You should broaden your horizons and aim higher. Not. Ranyao, expressionless, cut him off. Uncle, Wan is not a tool for your ambitions. Our relationship is our own business, and it doesn't require your concern. With that, he left. He grabbed Meng Wanqiu and left. I stepped out from under the shade of the trees, watching Meng's father so angry that his body spasmed. I approached politely and asked how he was. When he heard that I was Ranyao's classmate and childhood friend, his gaze swept over me with a hint of dissatisfaction. I pretended not to notice and tried to act like a lovelorn admirer, who, despite being dejected, defended the boy she liked with feigned composure. Ranyao is really pitiful. His father gambles and drinks heavily. His mother couldn't stand the long-term domestic abuse and ran away with someone else when he was very young. Ranyao even earned his tuition fees by fighting in illegal boxing matches. Uncle, please let them be. He is truly a good boy. Meng's father's gaze was sharp as a knife, and his expression changed repeatedly. His family has a history of violence too. Hearing this, I quickly shook my head. My eyes panicked as if trying to hide something, and then my eyes reddened, tears hanging on the brink of falling. No, his involvement in a fight and getting detained in high school was just because he was too impulsive when he was younger. By the end, my voice was choked and unclear. I wanted to continue my act, but Meng's father didn't give me the chance. He dialed a number and started yelling into the phone. You choose to degrade yourself by being with such scum. Don't consider me your father from today onwards. All your credit cards are cancelled. And you're not allowed to stay in the apartment in the suburbs of Beijing. Let's see how long you can last. Meng Wanqiu cried out over the phone. Dad, why won't you believe me? Ranyao will be successful one day, and our family will have to beg for his help. Meng's father didn't believe her at all. Soon, Meng Wanqiu received a text message about her credit card being deactivated, her throat burning with anger. No wonder our family will go bankrupt in the future, with your arbitrary nature. Even a fortune would be squandered away by you. That single mention of bankruptcy infuriated Meng's father to the point where he almost had a heart attack. He felt like Meng Wanqiu had been blinded by stupidity, and he scolded her along with her mother, who usually doted on her daughter. If I find out you're secretly giving her money, both of you can get out of this house. Meng's mother tried to calm her husband cautiously, not daring to utter a word of dissent. That evening, Meng Wanqiu kicked open my dorm room door. her eyes venomous as if poisoned. It was you who badmouthed me in front of my parents, wasn't it, Lu Mu? You're even more shameless than I thought. Don't think I'll leave Ran Yao. He will only ever belong to me. And you're just a cheap woman no one wants even if you throw yourself at them. I closed the book in my hands, calmly meeting the gaze of the furious woman in front of me, who still only saw relationships as a means to an end. Perhaps my calmness irritated her, or perhaps she didn't see the jealousy and rage she expected. Meng Wanqiu smoothed her hair at her neck, revealing a triumphant red smirk. Last night, Ran Yao was wild. It hurt a bit. Young men are so impatient. Who would have thought what he will become in the future? Meng Wanqiu paused, her lips curving, and her eyes more rampant than before, her breath hot on my cheek, her tone threatening. Don't set your sights on him. What right do you have to compete with me, with your post-graduation salary of 3,000 to 4,000 a month, or by seducing your useless foster father? A thunderclap exploded by my ear, as if in an instant my hearing was stripped away, leaving only a roaring noise that grew louder and louder. I had thought that Ran Yao would be reluctant to part with Meng Wanqiu, and I guessed that their relationship was already ambiguous, but I never imagined he would think of me this way. Seduction. The young man who had once rushed home in the rain, beat that beast until he was bloody, and protected me, telling me it wasn't my fault, comforting me gently. Was this really how he saw me? I clenched my pen so hard that the sharp tip pierced my skin without feeling. Under the light that spilled over my head, I met Meng Wanqiu's gaze, perhaps finally seeing the annoyance in my eyes. She seemed unusually excited. Is it true? At first, I didn't believe it, but, Lu Mu, you're despicable. I abruptly stood up, pushed her down onto the desk, and aimed a sharp pen at her palm, stabbing down hard. The pen tip broke, and a hole was poked in Meng Wanqiu's hand, blood trickling out. The fresh blood against her porcelain skin was strikingly conspicuous. She covered her palm and cried out, Lu Mu, you've gone mad. She grabbed the paper scissors from the desk and lunged at me, as I saw someone rushing in from outside. I paused for a moment, turned my head to one side, and the sharp edge of the scissors grazed my neck. Blood dripped down to my collarbone, soaking the collar of my white dress. I clenched my teeth in pain, not making a sound. A pair of slender hands covered the wound, and the man in front of me had a chill in his eyes reminiscent of a winter day, his gaze sharply sweeping over the assailant. You better have a good explanation. Seeing the man defending me, Meng Wanqiu's expression froze. She wanted to accuse the other of starting the fight first, but her mind suddenly flashed back to a scene of the man's past indifference. Ran Yao, you're protecting her. I'm your girlfriend. The skin under the palm on my neck shivered. I turned my face away, avoiding the man's touch. Ran Yao's eyebrows furrowed, his eyes fixed on me, his voice rough. Are you alright? I looked at him and coldly said, get out. Ran Yao looked stunned for a moment, his eyes filled with complex emotions, as if he couldn't accept that the girl who once only had eyes for him was now speaking to him with such indifference. I felt a chill. Ran Yao, like most men, was no different. When he was poor, all he thought about was how to make more money. After enjoying wealth, his thoughts turned to luxuries and desires, fine wine, women, and the thrill of regrets. These had become the new targets in his life. I never thought he cared much for Meng Wanqiu. It was just youthful pride and a man's desire at play, the unattainable moonlight and the mosquito blood already in hand. Men always think the best ones are those they haven't had yet. The wound on my neck looked worse than it was. It was actually not very deep, certainly lighter than the wound on Meng Wanqiu's hand. After a quick treatment, I sat back at my desk, the laptop screen in front of me filled with dense lines of code and formulas, a complete game script nearing its end. Suddenly, a notification popped up on my email. It was feedback from a technology company I had applied to a few days ago. Unsurprisingly, I had successfully obtained an interview with one of the top gaming companies in the country. I knew Ran Yao had also applied to this company. In my past life, I had helped him significantly improve his initial game model, and during the interview presentation, he shone brightly, performing second only to me among more than 20 other candidates. This time, I was eager to see how far he could go without my help. My phone screen suddenly lit up, and almost instantly, I hung up. The caller was persistent, as if determined not to give up, and when blocked, they resorted to sending text messages from other numbers. Lu Mu, do you have no conscience? Mom is so ill, and you can't even help, but can't you at least come to see her? The message was from my so-called younger brother, who wasn't related by blood and never spoke politely. It seemed like he had never called me sister since I could remember, although I don't particularly care for it either. To me, that family hardly qualifies as one. If I must label it, it might as well be called a den of vampires. The root of all evil, In my previous life, my foster parents were healthy and lively, still hopping around even after I died, yet, Lucien claimed his mother was ill. It was obvious without thinking. Meng Wanqiu must have been upset about being outdone by me tonight and was stirring up trouble again. After all, my so-called brother was her fervent admirer, obsessively devoted to her as if drugged, groveling in the dust. The only strategy she and my brother, flattened by the iron of their circumstance, could think of was to exploit a woman's innocence for their own ends. I scoffed, my laughter loud enough to startle my roommate returning late. Upon hearing about Meng Wanqiu causing a scene in the dormitory, she was even more furious than I was. Did that little hussy come strutting around? I used to think she was so picky, looking down on her suitors through her nostrils. Turns out she's blind to have set her sights on Ranyao. Seeing that I didn't respond, she quickly covered her mouth, remembering that I used to be the blindest of all. And blind I was, blinded in a car accident in my past life. Then falling from a high place, my brain splattered everywhere, my body too decayed to look at. All of this was thanks to that despicable man and woman. Since God has given me the chance to turn back time, how could I not make good use of it? How could I not live this life properly? Meng Wanqiu, you've done so much evil, you're bound to encounter ghosts. Karma is long overdue to fall upon you. On Friday morning, I made a trip to the tube houses near the university town. My foster parents doted on their son, fearing he wouldn't adjust well to living and eating at school, so they rented a house to stay close to him. Pushing open the rusty iron gate, I was greeted by a strong smell of tobacco and alcohol. The house was eerily quiet, except for the hurried footsteps coming from the bedroom. Lucien appeared before me, his yellow hair and his face a perfect blend of his father's sleaziness and his mother's harshness, with small, shifty eyes. At that moment, his pupils flashed with ill intent. The sun is harsh outside, you must be thirsty, have a drink to cool down. He offered me a bottle of soda, already opened, with a lift of his eyebrows and a look of arrogant pride, as if being served by him was a great honor. I barely lifted my eyelids and took the bottle without drinking. Aren't you saying your mom is seriously ill? Where is she? Lucien's smile faded instantly. Lu Mu, what's this about your mom and my mom? Don't forget your roots. If it weren't for my family taking you in, you would have starved on the streets hundreds of times. I had heard this phrase so often growing up that it made my ears callous. They couldn't have children for many years, and upon hearing advice to adopt a girl compatible with their zodiac to bring luck for a son, they did just that. Sure enough, they had a boy the following year, and their looks of disdain towards me grew. If it weren't for their fear of damaging their moral integrity and losing the annual subsidy of 2,000 yuan from the government, they would have abandoned me long ago. From a young age, I knew I was unwelcome in the family, yet I still harbored hopes for familial affection, until that stormy night, the violent slap from my foster father, the cold gaze of my foster mother. If I hadn't stabbed the man and escaped, I would have lived in the shadow of this family forever. After that night, I never returned home, and they never gave me any living expenses. Years later, as Ran Yao's and my company was doing well, that couple protested under our building, accusing me of being unfilial until I fell to my death. They never once visited my grave. He constantly complained to everyone he met that he had raised an ungrateful wretch, saying that such a person deserved a short and miserable life. Lucien, as the biological son of his adoptive parents, was equally greedy and shameless. He blamed my death on the negligence of the hospital staff and managed to get a substantial compensation. This so-called dutiful son took the money and spent it all to win over Meng Wanqiu's favor, without leaving a penny for his parents. Even now, recalling his heartless and ungrateful demeanor gives me chills. Lucien became anxious when he noticed that I kept refusing to drink the beverage, and his phone rang while he was urging me. He glanced at me in a fluster, hurried upstairs, and closed the door to take the call. I went over to the sink and poured the drink from the glass bottle into a ceramic bowl in the corner. When Lucien returned, he saw me lying unconscious on the sofa. Clutching the empty bottle, he kicked my shoulder with the tip of his shoe and sneered, "You dare to hurt Wan, you lowlife unworthy of public appearance. Today, I'll strip your clothes and record a video for the whole school." As he turned to get a camera from the cabinet, he barely pulled open the drawer when his head was struck hard, causing him to spin around and fall unconscious to the ground. The glass bottle shattered on the floor, and his phone dropped as well. I picked up the phone, opened the chat history, and sent messages to Meng Wanqiu and my foster father. As expected, Meng Wanqiu was lurking nearby. Upon receiving the message, she rushed over immediately. She burst through the door, impatiently complaining, "Why did you take so long? do you know how hot it is outside? I'm about to die from the heat." Before she could finish, her knees were struck hard with a stick, causing excruciating pain. She immediately fell to her knees, and then 2 loud slaps followed. Caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, Meng Wanqiu was stunned and couldn't even cry out before someone grabbed her mouth and forced an unknown liquid down her throat. As she lay coughing violently on the floor, her eyes and nose streaming with tears and mucus, she finally saw me standing in front of her. "What did you make me drink?" She stepped back, glancing at Lucien, who lay unconscious on the floor, her speech faltering with fear. I flipped the bowl upside down on the table and let out a cold laugh. "Of course, it's the kind gift you prepared for me." The dizziness in her head made Meng Wanqiu realize I was not joking. Her expression drastically changed, and she frantically started to gag herself, but she couldn't stop the blurring of her consciousness or the strange feeling rising in her abdomen. I moved the person into the bedroom, locking her hands and feet in handcuffs. Something Lucien never imagined would be used on his beloved goddess. When I arrived at the technology company for an interview, the hallway was already filled with candidates. Unsurprisingly, I saw Ran Yao among the crowd. He was nervously fidgeting with the corner of his suit jacket, a subconscious gesture when he was anxious. In our past life, we founded a company and secured our first investment from Guangming Group, which was the company we were interviewing with today. Back then, soon after resigning from Guangming, fueled by passion and a vision for the future, we pledged to establish the best gaming company in the country. He was in charge of product design, and I was responsible for market expansion. As we waited in the meeting room for the Guangming executive, he was as nervous as he was today. "AMU, if they don't like our design or agree with our vision, all our efforts this past year will be wasted." I leaned gently on his shoulder, intertwining my fingers with his anxious ones, my tone firm. "We will succeed. Don't forget, you promised to take me to see the northern lights in Iceland and to lie on the beaches of Barcelona in the sun." Whether it was my conviction that reassured him or the mention of Iceland that triggered a memory, Ran Yao's gaze briefly faltered. At that time, I didn't notice. My heart was filled with the joy of imminent dreams achieved. 3 days ago, the head of Yuan Guan Group had already approached me. He highly recognized my capabilities and was willing to invest in our company. However, the precondition was that my position had to be higher than Ran Yao's. I had to be the real decision-maker in the company. I couldn't understand why an investor, typically focused only on returns, would want to interfere with team appointments. The leader responded straightforwardly, "Lu Mu, when you left the company, I truly regretted it. You are a rare genius, unlike Ran Yao, who is at best a standout among the average, bound by limited capabilities and vision. His potential is capped. I know you two are lovers. You must have helped him a lot with the portfolio during the interview, right? There's a barrier between ordinary people and geniuses. You can help him temporarily, but not for a lifetime." At the time, I didn't believe it and pushed Ran Yao up the ranks under pressure, keeping my meeting with the head of Yuan Guang a secret to protect his ego. Looking back, I was foolish. His betrayal and recklessness turned me into a joke in the eyes of others and shattered my faith in love. In the end, I was left standing in the rain, completely drenched. From a distance of 2 to 3 meters, Ran Yao took long strides towards me. His eyes were bright. When he noticed the wound on my neck, he seemed slightly uneasy. "Does your wound still hurt?" I ignored his concern and countered, "What about Meng Wanqiu? Aren't you two inseparable? Why isn't she with you for such an important interview?" Ran Yao seemed stunned for a moment before lowering his head slightly, his eyes and brows furrowing. "She studies art. She doesn't understand these things. She couldn't help me like you used to. You always had a way of inspiring my designs." His words felt like a switch, and Ran Yao suddenly opened up, reminiscing about the past. I never knew he was such a talkative person, and I smirked self-deprecatingly. "Lu Mu, are you listening?" His voice was hoarse. I silently looked at him, and after a long pause, I calmly confirmed, "Ran Yao, you told Meng Wanqiu about how I was almost raped by my foster father." He took a heavy breath before responding. "She asked me about it on her own. I don't know how she found out. Where else could it have come from? Perhaps from them years later. Casually mentioned while resting in bed after a lover's quarrel, or maybe Ran Yao treated it as a joke to tell her during her tantrums. Although I had guessed it, hearing it from his mouth still made my heart ache sharply, as if pierced by a blade, not because of him, but because of my pathetic, laughable decade of sacrifice. The interview was about to begin when Ran Yao suddenly received a phone call. His expression changed drastically, and he started to leave but stopped as the HR personnel called out his name. His steps halted, his expression torn. I smiled. "Is it someone important? Yuan Guang recruits every year. There will be other opportunities." don't live with regrets. The fire in Ranyao's eyes suddenly flared. Indeed, how could an interview compare to Meng Wanqiu's safety? As long as Meng's parents accepted him, he wouldn't worry about opportunities to advance in the latter half of his life. Without any hesitation, he gave up the interview. I hurried back in the direction from which I had come. I picked up the documents and decisively headed to the conference room. There, I heard the deep and distant voice of the man sitting at the head of the table. Due to strategic adjustments within the company, this interview session will be Guangming Group's last external recruitment. Congratulations to all of you for catching the last train. When I returned to campus with the new company offer, rumors had already spread like a flood. Ranyao had gotten into a fight over the school beauty, and by the time the police and ambulance arrived, the scene was impenetrably crowded. Everyone shared details as if they had seen it with their own eyes. I heard that when he was carried out, he had already passed out, covered in blood, with several teeth knocked out. The scene was a mess, with sheets and covers all over the place. Meng Wanqiu was crying and screaming that she had been assaulted. While the man claimed that it was Meng Wanqiu who had seduced him, the police took statements, and the accounts were inconsistent, making it difficult to determine whether Meng Wanqiu was willing or forced. But Ranyao's assault is an indisputable fact, and it's uncertain if he will be expelled by the school. When I arrived at the hospital, my adoptive father had already awakened. His front teeth were shattered, his ribs broken, and his leg injured. Lying on the bed no different from a dead fish, my adoptive mother was crying hysterically, cursing and demanding Ranyao's life, while Lucien cowered in a corner, too terrified to make a sound. Seeing me enter the hospital room, Lucien rushed forward, grabbing my collar as if ready to strike, his teeth clenched in fury. Was it you? Did you do this? The commotion attracted the police nearby, who glanced over, forcing Lucien to let go of me. I straightened my crumpled collar and spoke in a low, mocking tone. If you think it was me, why don't you go tell the police? Tell them how you conspired with Meng Wanqiu to ruin me, where your aphrodisiac came from, and discuss how the man lying on that bed assaulted your beloved goddess. Lucien's eyes reddened, his fists clenched tightly, yet he dared not retort, breathing heavily as if he wanted to devour me alive. I patted his shoulder regretfully, advising him in a sincere tone, "My dear brother, we are family. It pains me to see our father suffering in bed, not to mention, the medical bills are over 1,000 a day. Why don't you negotiate a private settlement with Meng Wanqiu? If our family doesn't pursue Ranyao's assault, and she minimizes the issue, it might just resolve." Lucien gritted his teeth, caught in a long struggle. His gaze fell on our father, filled with anger and helplessness, resenting him for tarnishing his idol, yet blaming himself for not waking up earlier to prevent the tragedy. If his father were branded as a rapist, what would his future hold as the son of a rapist? Finally, he made up his mind and confronted Meng Wanqiu on her way back to school. He thought it would require a lot of persuasion, but to his surprise, the goddess agreed on the spot, asking only that the charges against Ranyao be dropped. Lucien's feelings were mixed, and despite her forgiveness, his expression hardly improved as he loudly vented his dissatisfaction. "Why do you like him so much? What's so good about him that you would make such a big sacrifice?" Meng Wanqiu's expression darkened instantly. Didn't she want to send that disgusting man to jail for life? Didn't she want to strip Lumu of his skin and scatter his ashes? But what could she do now that it had happened? Once the police started investigating, it would inevitably lead back to her harming herself as much as her enemy. Why bother? Ranyao's future was meant to soar. He couldn't afford any blemishes or face expulsion from the school. She was willing to endure the injustice for now, waiting for the day Ranyao would achieve great success. Crushing this family is no different than crushing bugs. It won't be long before that day comes. Yao is a genius. Once she graduates and sets up her company, she will be greeted with endless wealth and an elevated social status. Why should she bother entangling herself with these lowly people, wallowing in the mud? She holds a treasure in her hands, and her future is promising. The gossip that shook the school eventually ended with a settlement between the two families. Meng Wanqiu publicly claimed that on that day, she had taken some medicine and drank a bit of alcohol, which caused her to hallucinate, and it was all a misunderstanding. Although the law no longer pursued Ranyao's responsibility, his involvement in a fight that resulted in serious injury violated school rules and regulations. He was not expelled, but he received a major demerit, and along with it, his scholarship and eligibility to compete in the national science and technology competition were revoked. When the instructor handed me the registration form for the science competition, I gladly signed my name. "Thank you, teacher. I will do my best to bring honor to the academy." The school leaders originally had you in mind from the start. I don't know what got into you, recommending Ranyao instead. Now, after all the twists and turns, it's back to you. It's all fate. Don't disappoint us, okay? In my previous life, fate did not favor me. Ranyao shone in the competition, receiving offers from multiple companies, and he was proud of this achievement for a long time, even believing that his abilities were on par with mine, even years later. When he had become the admired director Ran, he would still occasionally boast about this achievement. After all, it was the only time in Ranyao's career that he beat me. Even though I didn't participate in the competition, he felt that it was because my abilities weren't recognized by the academy, while I represented the school in the competition in the capital. My roommate continuously updated me on Ranyao and Meng Wanqiu's activities, unable to bear the school's rumors. The two moved out of the school and rented a place together. Meng Wanqiu still hadn't kicked her habit of being extravagant, unwilling to compromise even slightly on her quality of life. To satisfy her, Ranyao neglected to look for a proper internship and instead returned to his old job of fighting in underground boxing rings, coming home injured every night. Unfortunately, his efforts not only failed to earn a word of comfort from his girlfriend, but instead resulted in her hysterical accusations. How can you earn such disgraceful money? Aren't you studying computer science? Go start a company, make games, and earn big money. Do you want us to end up living in a basement, unseen by the sun, leading a poor life like your parents? Ranyao's expression darkened frighteningly. Disgraceful, poor, the fatigue and dissatisfaction that had been accumulating day by day, along with the frustration of being cuckolded and unable to retaliate, exploded in that moment. Did you just realize I'm poor today? The money you despise so much supported me through high school and got me into college. If you look down on my parents so much, why did you get together with me in the first place? Oh, I almost forgot. When I confessed to you on the basketball court, you said I wasn't worthy of you. Later, for some reason, you suddenly changed your mind. It was as if he suddenly remembered something. A trace of confusion flashing in his eyes. Could it be because of Lu Mu? Once doubt sets in between people, trust collapses faster than a volcanic eruption. Meng Wanqiu grabbed Ranyao's hand, panicked and at a loss, desperately trying to defend herself. Of course not. When I rejected you back then, I just wanted to test you. Yao, you are talented, don't waste it in unworthy places. Don't worry about the money. I'll figure it out. You just focus on starting your business. The two embraced again, but this time, both had their own agendas. Several times the Meng family tried to take their daughter home, but Meng Wanqiu sternly refused, even when threatened by her father with disownment, and her mother sobbed as if she was about to kneel right then and there. Nothing could stop the young lady from nurturing her potential. The first game I developed was successfully launched online through Farlight Group, and upon its release, it received an enthusiastic response with a pleasing increase in download numbers. With the experience accumulated from my past life and an understanding of the psychology of the youth, the success of this new game was expected. However, when the first share of the profits hit my account, I was so excited that I couldn't sleep all night, even though in my previous life my fortune far exceeded this amount, and even later, when I drew a monthly salary of 3,000 to 4,000 just for the sake of experiencing the joy of receiving a paycheck. None of those moments were as thrilling as holding my phone and seeing the deposit now. From now on, every penny I earn won't have to be shared with Ranyao. I am me, he is he, and never again will our names be linked together. My mind is full of countless ideas and designs, but he, burdened with punishment and missing opportunities time and again. And with Meng Wanqiu, who dreams daily of a luxurious life by his side, how far can he really go? Winning the national design competition brought glory to the school, not only adding a significant achievement to my resume but also directing the best resources of the academy towards me. When the vice president of Farlight Group sent me a congratulatory message, I was in the process of selecting an apartment, a spacious 3-bedroom with a north to south layout and excellent sunlight and views. Importantly, this location was set to be redeveloped into a commercial street in a few years, promising a threefold return, a sure win. Lu Xian, somehow hearing the news of my house purchase, blocked me with his adoptive parents at the company entrance. It turns out, Meng Wanqiu, despite being at a dead end, couldn't curb her extravagant spending habits, treating him like Ranyao's ATM. Not wanting to lose face in front of his goddess, Lu Xian borrowed heavily across various platforms, eventually even resorting to usurers, accumulating a total debt of 500,000 as interest compounded. When debt collectors came knocking, threatening to cut off fingers as interest if he didn't pay within 3 days, his elderly adopted parents, who saw him as their hope for the future, Couldn't bear the thought of seeing their son maimed and turned their sights on me. You sneaky girl, buying a house without telling us. Quickly transfer it to your brother's name and take out $500,000 to help pay the debt, I scoffed, looking at them coldly as if they were strangers. What brother? Didn't you sever our adoption ties when I turned 18? After all, the state stops providing subsidies to adult orphans. They wanted to make more trouble, but were directly dragged out by security. Unexpectedly, the adoptive family, frightened by the debt collectors, hid here and there. And everything of value in their home was emptied. In desperation, the adoptive father kidnapped Meng Wanqiu, hoping the Meng family would pay to redeem their daughter and cover his online loan losses. Unfortunately, the Meng family had already been swept up in a debt crisis, with houses and cars, all tangible and intangible assets, completely seized and auctioned by the court, in his previous life, before the financial chain broke. Meng's father sent Meng Wanqiu abroad under the guise of studying overseas, carrying a large amount of laundered money, allowing her a few more years of splendor until she returned to the country broke and caught the attention of the nouveau riche Ranyao. This time, Meng Wanqiu's obstinate decisions led to the Meng family's downfall faster and more fiercely than remembered. The adoptive father, having stolen a car from a repair shop and managing to avoid public eyes, took Meng Wanqiu to an abandoned warehouse, only to find out about the Meng family's bankruptcy and their inability to help themselves. In a fit of rage, he took out his anger on Meng Wanqiu. After being tormented all night, Meng Wanqiu finally found a chance to escape at dawn. As he sped away in the car, he never anticipated that the brakes would fail and crash directly into the bridge railing. I saw her again half a month later, after being in a coma for half a month. Meng Wanqiu woke up paralyzed from the waist down, destined to spend her life in a wheelchair. Standing at the door of the hospital room, I heard her wretched cries and remembered waking up in a hospital bed in my past life, being told that my eyes were severely damaged and that I would never see again. My feelings at that time were no different from hers now. What goes around, comes around. It seemed she was atoning for her sins from a past life. I was about to leave when I overheard a conversation between Meng Wanqiu and Ranyao in the hospital room. Your paralysis is your karma. The man's voice was cold and devoid of emotion, the kind only someone accustomed to commanding authority could possess. From just this one sentence, I knew he had changed. I stopped in my tracks, a myriad of emotions suddenly flooding my heart, all converging into a storm inside me. Meng Wanqiu slowly lifted her head from the hospital bed, her eyes trembling like an earthquake as she looked at Ranyao a few steps away. Ranyao, when did you come back? The vacant look in the man's eyes before her suddenly brought back memories of the past. In the days following Lu Mu's death, his gaze towards her was just like it was now, so close, yet seemingly miles away. It was as if she was awakening from a dream, trying to bridge the gap between them. She attempted to get out of bed, but her legs failed to respond, and inertia threw her off the bed. Despite her disheveled appearance, Meng Wanqiu propped herself up on her arms, trying to crawl towards Ranyao. The man simply stepped back, avoiding her touch. Don't touch me, you disgust me. Ranyao, you can't treat me like this, she pleaded, looking up at him with a voice full of misery. I haven't wronged you in this life. I'm the one by your side now. Ranyao lowered his eyes and laughed mockingly. Can living another life negate the sins of the past? Ask Lu Mu if she would agree. Ask if she can forgive you for blinding her and causing her death. After saying this, he ignored Meng Wanqiu's pleas, turned around, and pushed open the hospital door, his gaze meeting mine directly. At that moment, my heart was a whirlwind of emotions and memories from before my death. Indeed, Meng Wanqiu had played a part in my demise. Merely being paralyzed was far from enough. If I had any doubts about Ranyao in this life before, they completely dissipated from that moment. From that day on, Ranyao began to appear frequently by my side. He waited madly at my home, my company, and all the places I often visited, from early morning till dusk, from late autumn to the winter solstice. Watching him in the pouring rain with a desolate and dejected expression, I remembered how soon after my death in a previous life, he wept and repented at my grave, begging the heavens in the heavy rain for another chance. The two figures overlapped, and I laughed mockingly, feeling it dirted my eyes. A few days later, a disheveled woman caught Ranyao's arm outside the company building, crying inconsolably. It was Ranyao's mother, who had abandoned him in his youth to elope with a lover. It can be said that his insecure yet proud character stemmed entirely from this woman. In a previous life, I knew of his deep attachment to his mother. He had used all means in secret to find her whereabouts, but on his way back, he was involved in a serious car accident. Upon seeing the woman, Ranyao froze in place. His eyes red as he stared at the other person, unable to utter the two words despite his hoarse voice. The woman was clearly agitated too, but her eyes did not show the joy of a long-awaited reunion. Instead, they resembled the soul of a ghost fallen into hell, looking up at the living world. "My child, save your brother. He is my life," she pleaded. After remarrying, Ran Yao's mother's younger son was suffering from kidney failure and lay in the hospital in urgent need of a transplant. She had repeatedly tried to find Ran Yao's whereabouts through contacts back in their hometown, but to no avail. Just as she was about to give up, I found her, not only providing her with some money for medical expenses but also Ran Yao's address. She obeyed me as if I were a deity. When she appeared after many years, the first words she spoke were not to ask how he had been over the years but to request a kidney donation for a brother he had never met. For Ran Yao, who had always been proud and longed for maternal love, this was more torturous than death by 1,000 cuts. I knew how demanding that woman could be, whether it was to repay the debt of birth or to sever this karmic tie. Ran Yao had no choice but to donate his kidney. When Ran Yao woke up from the anesthesia, he saw me waiting in the operating room and tried to get up excitedly, holding the post-operative care instructions. I glanced at him. The doctor said that donating a kidney will damage kidney function, and your immunity and metabolism won't be as good as normal people's, I informed him. Ran Yao was silent for a long time before he whispered, "It doesn't matter." I chuckled. "Indeed, a silver-plated spearhead. No big difference. Everything is your karma." Ran Yao looked at me, his eyes a tangled mess of emotions, suddenly unraveling as if awakening from a deep dream. "Xiao Mu, you." Tears filled his eyes instantly, a look of regret at the bottom. I'm sorry for what I've done to you." His voice trembled violently, his chest heaving as he reached out to touch me. I stood still, repeating like it was a joke, "Don't touch me, dirty." Ran Yao's voice dried up, he closed his eyes in pain, as if my words had uncovered his most unbearable past. "You won't forgive me, will you?" I looked at him coldly, the irony in my eyes nearly spilling over, then pushed open the door and left straight away. Behind me, alarms soon sounded. Doctors and nurses hurried to the room as the patient's post-surgery emotional disturbance had caused him to faint again. On the hospital rooftop, the wind was strong as I leaned back in a lounge chair, waiting for Meng Wanqiu to wake up. In just a month, Meng Wanqiu seemed to have aged 10 years, her figure dramatically thinner, due to the lack of funds for a caretaker and constant delays in paying hospital bills. The nurses showed no kindness to her. She opened her eyes groggily from her stupor, lowering her head to see her feet hanging dozens of meters in the air, which terrified her so much that her voice became hoarse like a duck's, afraid to exert any force lest she accidentally fall to her death. "Wake up, the view from the rooftop is indeed splendid. No wonder you and Ran Yao like to meet secretly here." Meng Wanqiu turned her head and froze upon seeing me. "It's you," I nodded, propping up my chin as I assessed her. "Yes, it's me." Surprised, memories flooded back in an instant, and like a moth stepping into a trap, Meng Wanqiu finally realized the danger when she became ensnared in the web. "You tricked me. You've always had memories of your past life." Meng Wanqiu's voice grew shrill. "It's you who turned me into this hideous, ghostly figure. You want to monopolize Ran Yao. Wasn't it enough to benefit from him in your past life? This life you still compete with me." I irritably dug at my ears, then pushed the wheelchair forward half a step, thankfully quieting the shrill voice. "Ran Yao is in the emergency room downstairs. If he survives, I'll definitely attend your wedding." I meant it sincerely, but Meng Wanqiu didn't believe me. "What have you done to Ran Yao? Are you crazy? If he dies, you'll be doomed to poverty all your life." I laughed as if I'd heard a joke. "How could that be? I have a house and a car, a promising future ahead, and my new company will be approved next month. The first round of financing, 10 million, has already been secured. It's from my former employer, Yuan Guang. Did you not know that? It can't be. It can't be." Meng Wanqiu acted crazily, tearing at her hair, forgetting her disabled legs. She reached out to stand and hit me, but she fell harshly to the ground, her head bleeding profusely, and she passed out. Lu Xian visited Meng Wanqiu in the hospital several times and later brought her back home. The goddess he once adored had now transformed into this sorry state, and Lu Xian felt no sympathy for her whatsoever. His foster father was arrested and jailed for kidnapping and abuse, while his foster mother, fearing debt collectors due to high-interest loans, had run off early on. Meng Wanqiu thought that Lu Xian still had feelings for her and was taking care of her out of affection, which made her quite pleased with herself. Unexpectedly, one evening, a group of people stormed into our house. Lu Xian humbly accepted a stack of banknotes from their hands and then handed over Meng Wanqiu to them. It was much later that I learned from Lucien, who had been arrested by the police, that he had sold Meng Wanqiu to a circus. At that place, disabilities were used as a gimmick to make money, and deformed women with any trace of beauty were particularly popular among the audience. When I left the police station, the sunlight was brilliant. My future, too, seemed like frost meeting the warm sun, my heart like plants, growing towards the light. Story 2. After my death, Xing Yan burned a lot of money for me every year. This led me to develop a habit of lavish spending in the underworld. Then suddenly one day, he stopped. I waited and tried to enter his dreams multiple times to no avail. Finally confirming that he had forgotten about this matter, having never thought to save money before, I accrued a massive debt in the underworld to maintain my usual lifestyle. In a fit of anger, I shockingly came back to life. Of course, I didn't actually come back to life. Rather, the king of hell, fearing I wouldn't be able to repay the debt, made an exception to let me return briefly. So, calling on Oxhead and Horseface, they crafted for me a body identical to my previous one. Having not been human for several years, suddenly having a physical form again felt quite odd. Frantically, I rushed to the human world straight to Xing Yan's villa. However, I was stopped by the security guards. They told me that a Xing family lived here, but no one named Xing Yan. Perhaps seeing my disheveled and pitiful state, they sympathetically gave me a business card and suggested I call the person listed on it. It took some effort to track down that person. The place I ended up at was a 5-star hotel, seemingly hosting an engagement ceremony, but when I saw the man on the poster at the entrance, I froze. Xing Yan was getting engaged to someone else. Well, it made sense. I had been dead for 5 years, and him moving on was normal, but even so, he shouldn't have forgotten to send me money. He had no idea how expensive things were in the underworld. His family ran a large business. Surely, they could spare a little to support my afterlife extravagance. I remembered how I had died, trembling in pain in his arms. As Xing Yan wept uncontrollably, I mustered all my strength to utter my last words. Remember to burn more money for me each year. Considering I died because of you, I was an orphan and had dated Xing Yan for years without marrying. I was genuinely afraid of being penniless after death. Only after seeing him nod did I close my eyes in peace. Now, just a few years later, has he forgotten the dead because of his new love? Furious, I wanted to confront Xing Yan when suddenly a clear male voice came from behind me. Are you looking for me? I turned around and saw a young man in his 20s, tall and handsome, and somewhat familiar looking. Seeing that I didn't respond, he continued, Uncle Chen called, saying you went to the Xings looking for me. Only then did I realize that he was probably the person on the business card. I scratched my head sheepishly, looking at the poster of Xing Yan, and said, yes. But I've already found who I was looking for. You're talking about my uncle. I was stunned. Xing Yan is your uncle? Yes, he's quite busy today. I'll take you inside, and he can meet you after he's done. He then led me inside. What's your name? Xing Lai. And you? Without thinking, I blurted out, Song Tao. I'm not sure if it was my imagination, but upon hearing my name, Xing Lai stiffened for a moment before quickly returning to normal. He took me to a private room on the 2nd floor, away from the crowd in the main hall. The room's floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the entire ceremony stage. After the host's speech, the bride and groom, under everyone's gaze, slowly made their entrance. There, after 5 years, I saw Xing Yan again. He was nearly 30 now, time leaving no trace on his face, dressed in a well-tailored black suit, made him look even more mature and charming, if I remember correctly. His fiancée by his side is the daughter of the Shin family. Initially, both families wanted them to marry, but Xing Yan insisted on being with me, a real-life Cinderella. This even caused the old man of the Xing family to be hospitalized in anger. Unexpectedly, after 5 years, Xing Yan ended up with Shening. Knowing this would happen, why bother in the first place? At the peak of the atmosphere, someone in the crowd shouted, "Kiss." I leaned against the glass window, watching the couple in the center of the crowd, and couldn't help but hold my breath. On the way here, I had considered this possibility, but seeing it with my own eyes still made my heart ache terribly. Reason told me I shouldn't feel this way. Xing Yan has the right to embrace a new life. I came back just wanting him to spend money on me. What am I really doing? Sensing something was off, Xing Lai leaned over and saw me crying. Immediately at a loss, what's wrong with you? If there's something to say, please don't cry first. I didn't want to cry either. I don't know why I couldn't control my emotions. Helplessly, I forced a smile and said, I'm fine, just too moved. Really? Is that really it? Xing Lai seemed skeptical. I nodded. Your uncle and your aunt are so well matched. I haven't seen such a festive atmosphere in a long time. I was moved to tears by accident. Xinglai paused, then asked, by the way, I haven't asked you yet. What do you need from my uncle? By then, Xingyan and Shining began to toast the guests. I watched the scene, my hand unconsciously tapping on the glass of the window. Actually, it's nothing special. I just wanted to ask him a few questions. I think my uncle won't be free for a while. Why don't you tell me? And I'll pass it on. I turned around, looked at Xinglai with an evasive gaze, and asked, you don't want me to meet your uncle, do you? Xinglai didn't expect me to be so direct. He smiled awkwardly and explained, not exactly. It's just that today is his engagement day after all. It's best not to disturb him. I guessed Xinglai probably knew something, but on second thought, he was right. Coming from the underworld, I shouldn't disturb Xingyan on such a joyous day to ask why he hasn't offered me paper money. I should have been more considerate. Sorry for the disturbance. I left those words and quickly exited the room. As I reached the hotel entrance, Xinglai followed me out. You haven't had your meal. Why leave so soon? I'm not trying to rush you away, don't misunderstand. Looking at this boy who couldn't even hide his thoughts, I found it quite amusing and decided to tease him. I actually don't need to eat, to which Xinglai replied, then where do you live? I can arrange a hotel for you. I was a bit lost following his train of thought, but he raised a good question, where should I stay tonight? Lord Yama only gave me 3 days. And if things don't work out with Xingyan, I might have to rely on Xinglai here. I don't want to stay in a hotel. Can I stay at your place? I don't know why Xingyan gave that villa to Xinglai, but I really wanted to go back and see. The most loving years of our lives were spent there. Xinglai was clearly frightened. What on earth do you want? He asked. Xinglai, you know me, right? Are you afraid that I'll ruin your uncle's engagement? If that's the case, you should keep a closer eye on me. I countered. I wasn't sure what Xinglai was thinking, but he indeed brought me back to the villa. Everything here remained much the same. The painting I had done with my own hands still hung in its original place, for some reason. I suddenly remembered that Xingyan once mentioned that a friend of his really liked my painting. I thought his friend had good taste, so I decided to personally paint a landscape for him, but I died before I could finish the painting. Ever since then, in the underworld, I've regretted not finishing that painting sooner. Now that I've finally come back, I want to finish what I started. I confidently headed to the room at the far south end of the second floor. Just as I was about to turn the doorknob, Xinglai immediately stopped me. You can sleep anywhere but this room. I just want to take a look. Even looking is not allowed. My uncle doesn't let anyone touch anything in there, including me. He won't know if you don't tell him. It's not allowed, period. Xinglai was very firm this time. Fearing I would persist with the room, he pulled me away. No matter how I tried to explain, he wouldn't budge. He really infuriated me. Why are you so stubborn? Only if my uncle agrees. But you don't want me to see your uncle, do you? Who knows what you're really up to? Xinglai, you really oh. Before I could finish, a sudden ring of the doorbell cut me off. Standing by the door, I opened it irritably. Who is it? But what I saw was Xingyan's face. Our eyes met. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. Xingyan stared at me, motionless. His eyes held too many emotions for me to discern. Xinglai was the first to recover, pulling me behind him and asking with a guilty conscience, Uncle, what brings you here? Xingyan was aggressive as soon as he spoke. Tell me, who is she? By then, Xinglai had calmed down. What do you think, Uncle? Xingyan seemed to realize something, staggering a few steps back. If it's not her, why does she look so much like her? Hearing this, Xinglai couldn't help but glance at me. If I remember correctly, we had never met before, but I'm sure Xinglai knew about me, just then. As Xinglai let his guard down, Xingyan quickly rushed over to me and grabbed my wrist. Xinglai tried to stop him but was kicked out the door by Xingyan. With a bang, the door closed again. Now, it was just me and Xingyan in the room. After a brief silence, Xingyan looked me over again. What's your name? He asked. I lowered my eyelids to avoid his gaze and replied, my name is Jiang Wan. He now had a new life. I shouldn't disturb it, since I would be leaving soon anyway. I might as well keep it from him. Xingyan scoffed. Even the voice is exactly the same. Tell me, who sent you? I looked up in surprise, realizing that he only saw me as someone who resembled Song Tao. That was probably for the best. Fearing he might detect something off, I chose to remain silent. However, the more Xingyan stared at me, the more agitated he became. Gripping my shoulders, he demanded, who allowed you to transform into her likeness? What exactly are you after? Answer me. He pushed me against the wall, my back throbbing from the impact. Yet I couldn't escape his grasp. Just then, Xinglai, who had just climbed through the window, witnessed the scene, he pulled Xingyan away, fuming. The engagement party isn't even over, and here you are, abandoning your fiancé to come here. What exactly were you hoping for? Wasn't it you who personally sent that person to the crematorium? Xingyan appeared as if he had heard something terrifying. His body trembled slightly. And he no longer dared to look at me, quickly fleeing the villa. Watching his retreating figure, a wave of sorrow washed over me. After Xingyan left, Xinglai's tone was no longer as polite as before. Why are you impersonating Song Tao? He asked harshly. I steadied my emotions, met his gaze squarely, and countered. How can you be so sure that I'm impersonating? We locked eyes for a moment before he looked away first. I don't care whether you're impersonating or not. Just don't try to approach my uncle again. He has had a tough time in recent years, barely recovering from a serious illness. I'm begging you, if it's money, a house, or a car you want, I can give it to you. Just please leave my uncle alone. I caught my breath. When did he fall ill? About 2 years ago. It was on and off, and he was sick for nearly a year. During that time, Shining took care of him, and they decided to get engaged after he recovered, so that was it. Xingyan hadn't burned offerings for me because he was ill. Honestly, I also blame myself for not being more prepared, always thinking about how I didn't enjoy life enough when I was alive, and once dead, I would splurge to my heart's content, buying villas and luxury cars without a second thought, and even keeping a bunch of handsome servants, having no business sense, yet still trying to get involved, not even understanding how to deal with people, let alone the resentful spirits in the underworld. By the time I realized things were going downhill, I was already trapped. Now that Xinglai had brought it up, I wasn't going to be polite. When I asked for a significant amount of underworld currency, his expression looked as if he had seen a ghost. Well, wasn't I a ghost? If it weren't for the useless offerings I burnt for myself, I would have asked for real money. Nevertheless, Xinglai did as I requested. 2 hours later, he returned with a trunk full of underworld money. He dumped the money on the ground in the yard, then without looking up, he asked, you should at least tell me who these are for, right? Otherwise, the intended recipient won't receive them. Song Tao, I said calmly, stating my own name. Xinglai stood up, shock apparent in his eyes. You can't possibly be the real Song Tao. Sitting on the bench, watching the flickering flames, I smiled. Exactly, didn't I already tell you? Xinglai crouched beside me, his face full of confusion. So, are you dead or not? What do you think? Then why didn't you tell my uncle just now? Why are you confused again? You want him to be happy, and of course, so do I. Xinglai hugged his knees, burying her face in the crook of her arm. Her voice sounded muffled. I'm sorry for missing you like that. I looked at the person beside me who seemed to be blaming himself, lifted my hand to ruffle his hair, and said in a light-hearted manner, what are you thinking about? I should actually thank you for burning all that money for me. When I return to the underworld and repay my debts, let's see who dares to look down on me. Xinglai had almost burned through all the paper money he bought. Maybe the king of hell will summon me back earlier once he receives the money. After a moment's thought, I spoke up. Can you tell me what's been happening with Xingyan these past few years? But before Xinglai could reply, a deep voice suddenly sounded from behind. Why don't you ask me directly? Xinglai and I both stood up and turned around, only to find Xingyan, who had returned, under the streetlight. His gaze was fixed on me. I didn't know how much he had heard, and instinctively, I moved behind Xinglai. Xinglai sensed my intention and shifted slightly, but didn't stop me. Seeing this, a pained expression crossed Xingyan's eyes. Who allowed you to burn paper money at my villa? I'm sorry, uncle, Xinglai began to explain, but Xingyan brushed past him and approached me. Though he was looking at me, his words were meant for Xinglai. Jin just sent a message. Your best friend was hit by a car and is now in the hospital. Upon hearing this, Xinglai immediately reached for his phone in his pocket, found the number, and dialed. But there was no answer. He hurriedly prepared to leave but then suddenly remembered I was still there. I gave him a reassuring smile. Go and see him. Don't worry about me. With a conflicted look, Xinglai glanced at Xingyan, thought for a moment, and finally left with a plea. Uncle, don't drive her away. As soon as Xinglai left, Xingyan grabbed me and pulled me inside the house. The moment the door closed, he eagerly began tugging at my clothes. I was frightened by this aggressive side of Xingyan, desperately covering my neckline, pleading with him. Don't do this, Xingyan, I'm scared. But it was as if he couldn't hear me, easily pinning my hands above my head, then ripping open my neckline to reveal a large expanse of my collarbone. The air chilled the exposed skin, causing me to shudder involuntarily. I tried to struggle, but Xingyan suddenly stopped. His gaze finally settled on a red mole below my collarbone. Was he verifying if I was really Song Tao? I thought annoyedly. The guardians of the underworld are too meticulous. Xing Yan used to love kissing me there, saying it was sexy. I didn't expect him to remember. His warm fingertips trailed across my skin, and almost instantly, Xing Yan's eyes reddened. Ah Tao, it's you. It really is you. His face was filled with the joy of regaining something precious. Trembling as he pulled me into his embrace, my Ah Tao is back. My Ah Tao is back. He murmured repeatedly, sending shivers through my heart. Xing Yan, please stop, I will have to leave soon, really. After a moment, Xing Yan looked up. Leave, go where? Back to where I came from, of course. You know better than anyone that it's impossible for me to still be alive. Hearing my words, Xing Yan's emotions, which had just settled, erupted again. So what if you are a ghost? I still want to keep you by my side. He said this and then picked me up and carried me upstairs. Xing Yan, put me down. I kept pounding on his body, yelling anxiously, Xing Yan, have you forgotten what day it is today? Your fiancé is waiting for you at home, you shouldn't be here. Xing Yan stopped in his tracks. So, the figure I saw at the hotel today was indeed you. That's not the point. He looked down at me, a bitter smile on his lips. Don't worry, I'm just taking you to change your clothes. I didn't expect that Xing Yan had kept all my belongings from before. He handed me a brand new suit. Sorry, I haven't updated these in 2 years. They're all old styles. You'll just have to wear this. Suddenly, I remembered my childhood in the orphanage, wearing second-hand clothes collected from elsewhere. Other kids dreamed of growing up to do great things, but my dream was just to have a beautiful dress. Later, when I was with Xing Yan, I told him this story as a joke. From then on, every season changed. He would bring home the latest clothes for me to choose from, taking the clothes from his hand. I remembered the 2 years he mentioned. I couldn't help but ask, why did you get sick? You promised me you'd take care of yourself. Xing Yan leaned against the cupboard door, focusing intently on me. Can't I get sick from missing you? I sighed. I'm not joking. Xing Yan, serious, replied. Neither am I. I asked again. Did Xing Lai's brother really have a car accident? Xing Yan straightforwardly said. I lied to him. You. Xing Yan pulled me into his arms, his tone somewhat aggrieved. You didn't come back just to talk about this, did you? Indeed, before seeing him, I had a lot of things I wanted to tell him, but upon seeing him, I suddenly felt that many things didn't need to be said. Go back. Shening is waiting for you. Don't let me ruin your relationship. Suddenly, Xing Yan became stubborn, holding me tight and refusing to let go. No. I won't go back. There's no real feeling between her and me, he said, lowering his head to try to kiss me. I was instantly furious, pushing him away. Xing Yan, how could you do this? If you chose to get engaged to her, even if you don't like her, you should remain loyal. Xing Yan let go of me, a harsh expression crossing his face. Why do you think I got engaged to her? Song Tao, do you still remember how you died? I do remember how I died, 5 years ago, to get back at Xing Yan. A business rival hired kidnappers to abduct me. They demanded 50 million. At that time, the Xing family, to keep Xing Yan and me apart, restricted his finances tightly. To gather enough money to save me, Xing Yan nearly died in front of his grandfather. 3 days later, he arrived with the money. He thought he could save me, but in front of Xing Yan, the kidnapper slit my throat. Xing Yan held me as he cried his heart out. I died in his arms. Not knowing whether those kidnappers were ever caught, if Xing Yan says so, could there be more to my death? What are you trying to say? Xing Yan lit a cigarette in front of me and slowly began to speak. After the kidnappers were caught, they immediately confessed to the crime, but I could never understand why they didn't just take the money and run. Why go to such lengths? Over the years, I've been investigating secretly. A year ago, I discovered that Shening had secretly contacted the family of the kidnappers. My engagement to her was only to get closer to her and gather more evidence to avenge you. I remember they kidnapped me, repeatedly claiming they were instructed by Xing Yan's enemies. Could there really be someone so foolish as to expose their own family like that? Or did they never intend to let me live from the start? I don't know. And I don't have the time to find out. I had no dealings with Shening. I barely even saw her face. I can't think of any reason why she would want to harm me. Now, all I want is for Xing Yan to be well. I took the cigarette from his fingers and decisively snuffed it out. This is all just your speculation. What if it wasn't her doing? It's been so long. It won't be easy to uncover the truth. Xing Yan watched my swift actions, momentarily lost in thought. I always wanted him to smoke less. Every time he lit up, I would put it out. After a few times, he would give in, sometimes playfully kissing me with his smoke-flavored lips. I had no way to counter him, so I decided to fight fire with fire. after eating durian, I insisted on kissing him. Unexpectedly, he not only didn't mind, but almost kissed me breathless. Remembering all these things made me even sadder. I secretly wiped away a tear, perhaps sensing my movement. Xing Yan came back to his senses. Whether it is true or not, the day will come when the truth will out. I hesitated, then said, if, and I mean if, it has nothing to do with her, then Yan, you should be with her. Xing Yan looked at me and asked coldly, who are you to make decisions for me? That night, we parted on bad terms. I thought I would wake up back in the underworld, but I was still in the villa. Xing Yan refused to go back last night, so I sent him to the guest room. In the morning, I found that he had already made breakfast. I looked around and shamelessly took a seat at the dining table. To ease the awkwardness, I casually asked, didn't Xinglai come back last night? As Xing Yan was about to push a sandwich towards me, he paused upon hearing my question. Are you that concerned about him? I pulled the half-pushed sandwich in front of me and smiled, saying, isn't he your nephew? It's only normal for me to show some concern on your behalf, right? Unsaid yet evident, Xing Yan's culinary skills had indeed improved. Not a blood relative. What? He was a child adopted by my father. I remembered, Xing Yan once told me that he had an older brother who passed away young due to illness. Later, overwhelmed by grief, the old master of the Xing family adopted another child from elsewhere to alleviate his longing. In that sense, Xing Lai and I were both orphans. However, he was much luckier than me. Just as I was thinking, Xing Lai called. Seeing me craning my neck, Xing Yan turned on the speakerphone. I thought Xing Lai was going to confront Xing Yan about deceiving him the night before, but instead, it turned out that the old master of the Xing family had been hospitalized. After learning that Xing Yan had left Shening at the engagement banquet the day before, the old man had been so angry that he fell ill. Xing Yan had to rush to the hospital immediately. Before leaving, he asked me to wait for him at home. Promising he would be back soon, I nodded in agreement, and 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Thinking that Xing Yan had forgotten something, I quickly opened the door, only to find Shening standing outside. He really has someone else, Shening blurted out, intending to barge in, but when she saw my face clearly, she shuddered in fright, her voice breaking. Aren't you supposed to be dead? Are you a ghost? With my arms crossed, I slowly approached her, a slight smirk on my lips. Why don't you guess if I'm a person or a ghost? Holding her head, Shening screamed hysterically, ghost, don't come any closer, help. Watching her stumbling figure running away, I couldn't help but wonder, why was Shening so afraid of me? I thought about it for a moment, then decided not to bother with this question anymore. I strutted into the room that Xing Lai had kept me out of the day before. Pushing open the door, I found it filled with things I had used before. Xing Yan had arranged everything neatly, and I quickly found the unfinished landscape painting. With nothing else to do, I spread out the paper and started sketching with ink and brush. It wasn't until sunset that I finally completed the painting. I stretched lazily, feeling a sense of accomplishment. After carefully restoring the room to its original state, I opened the door, but the next second, everything went dark as a sack was thrown over my head. Then I was hoisted onto someone's shoulder. This feeling was too familiar, unforgettable no matter what, but this time, who was kidnapping me? As I was jostled to the point of nausea, the person finally dumped me into a car. I sighed inwardly, not expecting to leave in such a manner. I didn't even have time to leave a note for Xing Yan. He would surely worry if he returned and didn't find me. The car drove for about half an hour before stopping. I had no idea of the direction, so I couldn't estimate our location. When the light finally came back, I found myself in a closed room, and there was Shening, the person who had kidnapped me, wearing a black leather jacket, her face clouded with gloom. Far from her usual gentle and gracious image, she pinched my chin, scrutinizing my features. So, you're not a ghost, right? I looked at her calmly. Without responding, Shening suddenly burst into laughter. With a confident tone, she declared, if you were really a ghost, you wouldn't have been caught by me in such a sorry state. But in the next second, her smile faded, and she tightened her grip, her sharp nails digging into my skin. Who exactly are you? I've searched all day and found nothing about you, I responded with a nonchalant expression. So, Miss Shen caught me just to find out who I am. Shening scrutinized me with contempt and arrogantly said, it doesn't matter if you don't tell me, whether you are her or not. If I could kill you once, I can kill you again. Her words struck me like a bolt of lightning. This meant that Xing Yan's guess was right. My previous death was indeed orchestrated by Shening. Why? I have no grudges against you. Why did you harm me? No grudges. Shening laughed as if she had heard the joke of the century. She let go of me and then seemingly pulled out a knife from nowhere. The sharp blade traced my face, her eyes filled with deep hatred. "Because you are the shame of my life," unfazed, I retorted. I didn't realize I had such influence. "If I'm not mistaken, we only met today, right?" Shining glared at me coldly. "The problem is that you have a face identical to Song Tao's. Just one glimpse of your silhouette was enough for him to abandon me in front of so many people, letting everyone laugh at me." I lowered my head and sighed. "I was wrong yesterday. I accept whatever you do to me, but Song Tao hasn't wronged you. He and Xingyan are each other's first love. They being together hasn't hurt anyone. What do you know?" Shining suddenly shouted. "I fell for him when I was 15, everyone around me knew that we were meant to marry, but he chose you, a poor girl who had nothing, over an arranged marriage between the Sheng and Shin families. You wouldn't understand how those people mocked me. They said I wasn't capable enough to keep Xingyan's heart, that I lost to someone inferior to me in every way. How could I accept that?" I spoke with difficulty. "So you had her killed?" "Yes. As long as she was gone, Xingyan would be with me. You saw our engagement party. He organized it himself. If you hadn't suddenly appeared, we would have been married and happy forever. So, only if you disappear again, will Xingyan fall in love with me once more." As Shining spoke, she slowly raised the dagger in her hand, but just then, one of her men rushed in. "Boss, it looks like we've been spotted." Fearing exposure, Shining had no choice but to move me to another location. The car jolted all the way to an abandoned factory, but soon, she realized they were exposed again. Cars were approaching from all directions. I glanced down at the safety amulet on my wrist, which I guessed had a tracker. Xingyan must have put it on me in the morning when he left, probably fearing I might sneak away, just in case. I never thought it would come into play here. However, Shining quickly regained her composure. Because she learned that the approaching group was not the police, she pulled me over and held the knife to my neck, confidently asserting, "As long as I have you, I can certainly make my escape." I smiled. Normally that would be true, but today she was mistaken. Outside the factory, the roar of a car engine sounded. I knew the moment had come, and deliberately provoked Shining with my words. "Do you think it's Xingyan coming? Do you think he will still love you after seeing this scene?" "Shining, you are truly pitiable. You have everything one could want, living a life most can't imagine, yet you chase after a heart that isn't yours. You are nothing but a foolish pig, a pitiful creature. A complete joke." "Shut up." Xin Ying's face twisted in anger at my words. She viciously pushed the knife closer to my neck. Seizing the moment, I leaned into the sharp blade, using her force against her. Determined not to die so easily, I jerked my neck back and forth across the blade until intense pain surged. Shining froze as she realized what I was doing, watching as blood spurted out, splashing onto her face and body. "Ah!" Shining screamed, her hand shaking uncontrollably with the knife. As the blood flowed more freely, Shining completely lost it and pushed me away in a frenzy. Xingyan and Xinglai entered and witnessed the scene. "Ah Tao!" Xingyan rushed over to catch me as I nearly fell, his eyes filled with terror. "No, it can't be." He desperately pressed his hands over my wound, trying to slow the bleeding. "Ah Tao, hang in there. I'm taking you to the hospital." I reached out to grasp his arm and said, "It's no use. I was meant to leave anyway, sooner or later." Xingyan looked at me, tears falling heavily. Why make me go through losing you twice?" "Ah Yen, I'm sorry." I tried to lift my hand to wipe his tears, but my strength failed halfway. Xingyan quickly grasped my falling hand, pressing it against his cheek. "Ah Tao, don't leave me." I was finding it hard to breathe now, needing to hurry and settle my affairs. "Ah Yen, let go of everything and live well, and don't forget to burn paper money for me. Things are expensive in the underworld. The year you were sick, I had a really tough time down there." Then, I turned my head toward Xinglai who had restrained Shining and said weakly, "Take good care of your uncle, or I won't rest even as a ghost." Xinglai's eyes were red. He opened his mouth to speak but ultimately just nodded. I caressed Xingyan's face, my eyes filled with longing and my heart full of reluctance. The servants in the underworld are handsome, but none compare to even half of Xingyan. Oh well. Such is this life, everything else must wait for another life. The sound of sirens grew louder in my ears. I smiled knowingly and slowly closed my eyes. After returning to the underworld, I dismissed all the male servants. They were good-looking but useless, only good at spending money. I began to live frugally, saving all the extra money I had. Normally, after death, everyone has to queue in the underworld waiting to be reborn. I have no idea when it will be my turn. I can no longer afford to squander my time as I once did. Lately, a sense of unease has been clouding my mind. affecting my sleep and appetite, filling my days with worry. That was until one day, Xinglai sent me a letter. He informed me that Xingyan had properly buried my body, Shening was sentenced to death, and both he and Xingyan attended the trial. He assured me not to worry about Xingyan, who has been busy with taking a new company public. Holding his letter, I read it over and over, finally feeling a weight lift off my chest. At the same time, that unease vanished like smoke. I completely trusted Xinglai's words and even looked forward to his next letter. Sure enough, a few days later, he wrote to me again. This time, he mentioned my painting. 5 years ago, I saw a painting in my uncle's office that I really liked, so I nagged him to introduce me to the artist. He refused, saying at most he could have the artist paint another one for me. I agreed, but waited a long time without ever seeing the painting, and I couldn't help asking him about it several times. My uncle always found excuses, and I complained about him behind his back. Today, I received a painting signed by Song Tao, and I feel I owe my uncle an apology, but I can't tell him. I can only secretly share this with you. And also, I really like your painting. It turns out that Xingyan's friend was Xinglai. Truly, the connections between people are mysterious. He helped me, and I could return his kindness in this way. That night, I tried to enter Xinglai's dream and succeeded, but he didn't seem happy to see me. I poked his sturdy arm and asked, "What's wrong? You seem unhappy to see me. Is your uncle not doing well?" Xinglai waved his hands frantically. "Not at all. It's just what? My uncle is busy dating Miss Shi from the Yi family, and I was worried you'd be jealous." I put my hands on my hips, indignantly saying, I'm not that petty. If I could enter Xingyan's dream, I would definitely go and bless him." Xinglai quickly grabbed me. "Please don't. Isn't my uncle hurt enough?" I then asked, "What's this Miss Shi like?" Without a second thought, Xinglai said, "Prettier than you." I punched him. "I'm not asking about looks. Look at Shening, beautiful but with a heart of a snake. When choosing a partner, character is what's most important. Do you understand?" Xinglai, holding his head, said pitifully, "I understand. Just don't bother my uncle anymore. He's doing well now." I waved my hand irritably. "Fine, I won't come anymore." Xinglai hurriedly explained, "That's not what I meant. You can come see me." Looking at his earnest face, I tried to smile lightly. "I won't come anymore. Take care." I always thought I was different from other ghosts. They could enter other people's dreams, but I never could. I tried to enter Xingyan's dream several times but always failed. Even the king of hell couldn't explain why. Eventually, I just gave up. But now, I've come to realize, once dead, one should just pass on peacefully, and never disturb the living. With this thought, I smiled and said goodbye to Xinglai. Yet, he stubbornly chased after me, refusing to stop. "I was just joking earlier. You just want to know about my uncle, right? Next time you come, I'll tell you about him and Miss Shi, or anything else you want to hear. I'm willing to share." "Song Tao, you promised now. You can't go back on your word. I'll be waiting for you. You said the underworld is expensive, right? I can burn a lot of paper money for you." Watching his figure blur in the distance, I couldn't help but find it amusing. When did I ever agree to this? Kids will be kids, but then again, kids can be deceiving too. Otherwise, how could someone who claims to be doing very well and frequently dates the Yi family's daughter end up at the bridge of helplessness? With a trembling voice, I called out, "Ian."